Okay, guys, it looks like you are live, so let's hope this all works.
Apparently we're live.
As usual, you have your chat, should be coming up there, even though it isn't. So that's great, that's wonderful. Everything's working so well. Say hi, Jen.
Hello, Jen. So I'm here today with a special guest, Cottesmore from YouTube. Oh, we're going to get...
I'll mute myself, so... Hello.
Are we actually... Oh, right.
You are live, yes,
Yep,
don't
we are
worry
live.
about it.
That's weird, we're back to front on. Which one are we back to front on?
This one.
Oh,
Probably
right.
we twist it slightly.
You can do whatever you need to.
So I can see we're getting comments coming up.
Yes, you are.
So...
Here we are. Right, the live chat is now live. We'll pop that out. It's lovely when everything works. Hi guys, Technical Monkey here.
The guy who will not share his name says hi a lot of times.
He does that a lot. I don't know whether he's got a very sticky return key or something.
There you go. Right, you have pizzas, you have drinks.
We have pizzas.
Tap on the
as
floor
well.
if you need anything.
Oh, yeah. Okay, so...
What
Go.
more could we ask for?
So...
I'm sure she'll think of something.
I know.
I will do, actually, yeah. So, really good to see you all. Great to have you along. And, gosh, we've got loads of comments already. I don't know, can you see the comments?
I can. I've also got it on my phone as well. So I can keep up.
So I've got here today, special guest, Cottesmore. Is it that how it's pronounced?
Yep, everyone normally gets it wrong and you got it spot on first time.
So is it an actual place name?
There is an actual place, but the street I live on is Cottesmore.
Right.
So it's Cottesmore Way is where I live, and it just sort of stuck. New Junction gave me the idea, who I think is in the chat. So,
have a look. We've got Canadian Rail fan Lee Phillipson, the guy who would not share his name, Anthony Daniel, and Berry 120. Yeah, we've been literally
kindly fed with pizza.
We've just been. Let me just scroll up. Warrington Train Spotter 2778. Good evening to you. Yeah, New Junction is in. Good evening to you too. New Mills Model Railway. Otis JB. Derek Grant. Yeah, we got a lot of people in. Flymo Chairman 1. Hello, Jenny and friends. Hi to you.
It says at the minute 45.
45. Oh, it's not too bad for the start.
No.
But I must apologise. I've got this terrible head cold, so I'm not a bundle of laughs at the moment. My voice might sound a little bit strained. So what's that? Warrington Train Spotter 2778. What is the pizza topping? We've got some kind of meatball with stuffed crust.
I'm not sure what this one is.
Margarita, I think.
Is it?
I'd say margarita.
Yeah.
Have a piece of this if you want.
No, I'm happy with the margarita. I'm going to wait for it to
Do you want some of this?
I will do.
Oh, okay.
Good time. No rush.
I'm starving hungry. I haven't eaten anything since this morning.
So, hello guys. I like transport. Hello Jenny. Hello Dave. I've just nearly dropped my phone. Hello.
So it's great to have everybody in, and yeah, GMRC. No doubt we're going to talk a lot about that. So I'm sure you're all brimming with questions, and well, you're all on the internet, so maybe somebody's got an opinion on the internet. You never know. But certainly, what did you think of the final? Went out on Saturday. They keep putting it out at earlier and earlier time, and don't ask me why. I don't know. I think it's something to do with not going head to head with. Is it Strictly that's on?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think nobody survives going head to head with Strictly, so they have actually moved it forward, possibly because of that. But what did people think about the final? I'm obviously biased because I was there, but I know that there's been a lot of controversy mooted over various bits and pieces. So maybe I'm here to put the record straight. I think Simon...
That would be controversial.
Controversial? Me? Controversial?
Never. There's a load of people saying hello. A lot of people saying they missed it as well because it seems it wasn't that clearly communicated. The time changed. It just sort of came out. Oh, it's at 7. Oh no, now it's actually at 5:40. I suppose the only place that Strictly and the Great Model Railway Challenge are now competing is with the NTA award that it's up for, which is fantastic news. I will find a link and I will put it in the chat for you guys to go and vote for it. I will do that now.
Are we in the same category then?
I think you are.
I've been in a nominated programme before, but I'm never quite sure how it works. I just get told, go and vote for it. So we do, and that's it.
You have to register, and then you get a reminder to vote when it opens. I've just put the link in the chat, which hopefully you have settings to allow it. If not, we will figure that out later.
That should be live chat. I can't see it. I don't. Sometimes you find that there's like a delayed reaction, but
one of your moderators might be able to do it because I'm not a moderator. So if Warrington Train Spotter or
I can make you a moderator if you want.
Oh yeah, go on then. Let's do that.
If you post,
I have done. It's just there. Oh, hello, Alan. I've just seen your name. Hello,
right,
Alan from Dragon Junction.
If I make you a moderator, add moderator.
I am now a moderator. Let's try that.
You have the ultimate power.
I have the power of the spanner. I don't know if that worked or not. I might need to reload and give it a few minutes. We'll figure it out while we eat pizza.
Let's have a look. I'm trying to go. So, Canadian Rail fan. Well, Jenny, I had 6 Class 66 running around layout with 700 cars. That is a massive layout. We're going to need to see some video of that. I think that is impressive. I like transport. Hello to you, and it says hello to Dave.
Hello.
And is this? What's this?
Lemsip for you because you have such.
Because
a cold.
I have a nasty cold. Yeah. So, do you want a hot drink or anything?
I'm fine with my beverage. Other fizzy ones are available.
So I just I keep forgetting. I keep proffering it up to the camera up there, but of course, because of an issue with OBS, we're on a different camera. So I just thought I'd. Where is the camera?
It's this big thing here.
Oh, that would it.
It's the big fish
So
lunch.
merchandise is available. The Jenny Monday Club with the big JK logo on the other side.
It's boiling hot. Don't drink it.
Okay. Apparently.
Would you like another can?
I'm perfectly fine for now, thank you.
Okay. Hammer on the floor if you need anything.
We will do. We will do.
I know you will.
So yeah, I'm getting over a stinking cold, so my brain is all like fuzzled.
I'm really impressed with the level of service. I don't get this at New Junction. When I came, I got abuse from New Junction.
Did you?
So, yeah.
What you mean you didn't bring pizza with you?
Exactly. To go and get my own food. Not good enough. Yeah, there he is in the chat. I knew it. Islet Transport says the power of the spanner. That's a good way of putting it. It is.
I like that. Yeah.
You do have a certain sense of responsibility.
Actually, Brockwell Lane, was that the new Class 24 from Bachmann on GMRC? Yeah, on the Who's Counting Rivets layout. It certainly was the 24 one. And actually, between you and me, it wasn't very happy about going through that fire pit. You know, they had the touch paper. It doesn't show it on the thing, but it became remarkably sluggish and temperamental after it went over there the first time. But then again, they actually tried to use, it was the new version of the SECR C-Class on our layout, but it wouldn't get round the corners.
Oh.
So there was that, like with the new livery birdcage coaches, they were, I presume they're like the pre-production livery prototypes was what they were using. But it wouldn't go round the corners. So the Class 20 you see going round, and they make out like, oh, the Star Train is a Class 20. They had to change the script because it's basically, we can let you use this Bachmann product that will get round the corners, but it was actually quite an old model. That was it's probably about 15 years old now. That was one of when they very first brought out the Class 20. They did one in Waterman Railways livery for the Collectors Club, and that's what that actually was. Let's have a look. What else have we got on the?
I've got a question from Electron. Is it true that you got your pair of 97s? It is. There's on my Facebook page.
Yeah, you were just saying about those.
I feel super happy, and have to give a big shout out, if you don't mind, to Model Railway Emporium. The guys there saw it, knew I liked it, and was like, "Here you go. We've just got this in. Are you interested?" And
come get your candy.
It really was. Yeah, it was like, "Do you want to spend money?" And because I model the Cambrian Coast, or a depot depicting on that, yes, of course, I had to go for it. You can't say no when one of those models comes along, and they are absolutely beautiful. Very bright, as they will be for brand new yellow ones, but you know, it is what it is.
Do you find that there's certain liveries I find work better with weathering?
Absolutely.
So will you be weathering them?
I personally won't. I'm going to go down to Grimy Times
Right.
as my local shop, and the work that the guys do there is fantastic.
I have seen some of their work, and it is very, very good.
I don't have the skills to even attempt to weather something of that value. I might start with a £9 wagon maybe one day, but no, it's there. I think the Dutch livery actually probably looks one of the best when it's dirty. That's because you can't see it.
Yeah, it's not my favourite livery, but I would agree with you on that. It doesn't quite look right in model form.
Yeah.
Unless it's got that kind of slight dirty edge to it. In fact, one of the other wagons that I've got, which I really must weather, is Bachmann released the towed brake van in that sort of all over yellow livery. And it looks really silly in model form, like really clean and bright and yellow, because the roof is yellow and everything. And I just look at it and think, it just really needs to be weathered to look right.
Yeah. What have we got here? Ash asks you, how's the pizza?
It's very good, actually.
It is delightful. I'm quite enjoying this.
I'm stuffing
Take notes,
my face.
Richard, for when I'm down there next time. If it's not pizza, you're not getting any interviews. Mark Wilson says, hello to everybody, including the monkey that's downstairs.
Oh, the cupboard monkey.
Yep, the cupboard monkey. And asked me, what gave me the idea to start Model Rail Network? It's a great way to see others progress in your postcard. And Mark, you do. Model Rail Network is just a group that me, Richard from New Junction, and a few others run, where we just try and get people to collaborate.
I think it's a great idea. I mean, there's a lot of, for example, car channels. I've noticed a lot of crossover. There's a few car channels that I watch, and they do have regular stuff like that. And I think it's great for letting people know about what's out there. Because sometimes you have your subscriptions and you stick religiously to them, and by having a group of people that collaborate, it allows you to find stuff that you might also like.
Yeah, and that's and on there obviously there's the theme of Great Model Railway Challenge. I post a picture up every week. It goes on. Let us know your thoughts, and the reactions on there have been overwhelmingly positive. I think we've had one person who quite rightly aired his opinion that it differed to everybody else's. It was bad for the hobby, and I think we've just discussed.
Yeah,
we both think it's an amazing thing for the hobby. You wouldn't have done it if you didn't think it was that.
That's it. If I thought it was just going to be like, look at the weird thing, I would not have done it. I'd have run for the hills. But it wasn't like that. And I think you've got to get it into. It's what we talked about before.
Yeah.
It's about priming people's imaginations. So there was layouts there. Nobody would ever build a model railway like that. But you were kind of pushing the envelope of what you can do in model form. And I think sometimes people look at that and go, actually, if you can do that, I could do this. And it's about inspiring people to maybe model more conventional things. But like we made a full-size tree out of model materials, and if you can do that, making small ones is dead easy. So things like that, I think by pushing the limits of what you can do, it fires up people's imagination. Does that make sense?
It does. I enjoy watching it, and like I said upstairs, my son really loves it now. He's sort of got almost back into railways, which for me is great because now I've got an excuse to go and buy a lot of Thomas materials.
Yeah.
I've always got this thing of I'd like the full Thomas suite.
Now here's a question for you: do you like the old Hornby ones, or do you think that the new Bachmann ones, now that they've got the license, is this a real breath of fresh air?
I don't know. I don't know. I'm probably a little too jaded with Bachmann's current release schedules, and the quality that some of the stuff has come out of that.
How so? So what you say, just like the long lead times?
Yeah, and I think Hornby made great models first time round, and they came out off the shelves ready to go, perfect. 9 times out of 10 on time. I still prefer the Hornby models, and you can still get them very reasonably priced.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I just think Bachmann does have the edge on quality. So
the Bachmann ones feel like me to be closer to how they looked in the books and that.
Yeah.
But The Hornby one, see, I remember when they first came out, and Tom's the Tank Engine wasn't really a huge thing when I was a small kid, and the books existed. But aside from that, I think it was when the TV series first came on TV, and they used, I think it was Gauge 1 models, and with the eyes and the smoke and stuff, and it was narrated by Ringo Starr. That was kind of the point where the tie-in models turned up, and Hornby for me almost phoned it in, because a lot of the models were just adapted from some of the stuff that was already in the range. So the Thomas model was adapted from, was it that E2 model? And the Percy model as well was just based around their little 040 Desmond onto the Smokey Joe thing, and it just felt like
Everyone needs a good Smoky Joe logo, by the way. If you don't have one, go and get one. They're about £20 now.
if that, I've seen them for brand new for about 15. You can get them.
I
don't have one. It has
There's an
to be
interesting
said.
question from Warrington Trainspotter, who says, was the team fallout you had made bigger than it was on GMRC?
It was made different, not as big, but different. Simon is kind of vilified, and actually, I think what he says, what you see on camera, is true. He said that. The camera doesn't lie in that respect, but what it does do is it takes it out of context. And what you don't see is the other footage around it of the real person who was causing a big nuisance. Now, we had one person on the team, and it wasn't apparent at the start, was somewhat abusive. They caused a lot of trouble. They belittled a lot of people, and outright lied as well. And then later on, as the series progressed, they were making threats of physical violence against.
Wow.
Les got accosted in the lift at the hotel and was threatened with physical violence by this other member on the team. Simon got threatened as well, and this person was trying to play us off against each other by lying about what others had said, and it reached a point where I guess you can't ignore it any longer. And we were trying to keep this secret from the film company. What we didn't want was it to become the main feature of our group, so we kind of tried to keep a lid on it. The film company knew that something was going on, and they kind of had a sense of who was behind it, but we just really went out of our way to stop it from appearing on camera. But unfortunately, at the end of it, the person who really caused the trouble was actually threatened with being kicked off the shoot, because they threatened to break one of the camera crew's lenses if they didn't stop filming them.
You don't.
And it's like it just really got out of hand, and I think it's really bad that Simon comes across. A lot of he's been trolled tremendously online. People saying he's a bully, and he wasn't. Simon was desperately professional all the way through, and actually, you don't see the person who actually caused all the problems. I think a lot of people have asked, are the team all still friends? Yeah, 5 of us are. One of us we have nothing to do with. So, yeah, 5 of us, I think, worked really well as a team.
I think you did.
But it was said in the final that we were more than one man down. Even Steve Flint noticed this, and when we had a meeting about could they throw this person off the shoot because they'd been abusive and threatened people, even Steve Flint said, well, I've never seen them actually make anything. They just the team seems to be carrying them, and if anything, they're working against you, because they were belittling what we were doing. They were creating artificial problems, lying about what other people say. This person would come up to me and say, "Oh, Simon said this about you," like, they're trying to get you thrown off the thing. Excuse me. Then they would say something different to Simon about saying, "Oh, well, Jenny has said this about you behind your back." Trying to play people off against each other. So all I'll say is, it wasn't Simon. Simon is exemplary, upstanding. He's a great person. I'm still absolutely 100% friends with him, and I support him in every way. He's being unfairly trolled because the real nuisance in our team got away scot-free in the edit. All I will say is that you don't see a lot of them.
Well, yeah, and I suppose, fortunately or unfortunately, that may have compounded some of the issues, is how the editing was done. But that's way outside of your control. And at least if you guys are still a unit, if you will, then that's the best thing to take away from it, isn't it? It's not to dwell on the negatives, but focus on the fact that you got to the final. Out of how many modelers that turned around and wanted to go on it,
They had about 600
you guys got there.
Yeah.
And that's something to definitely take away as a bonus. I couldn't do it. I don't have the confidence. Although I do this, I wouldn't have the confidence to go in front of a TV camera. I couldn't do it. I don't think so yet.
But yeah, it was a Canadian Railfan says, Jenny, I know who it is, but keeping mouth shut. Feel free to name them if you know who it is. I'm just too polite to. Yeah, Warrington Trainspotted 2778. Channel 5 has made Simon the villain, which is wrong. And I have been in conversation with Pat Doyle, who's the series producer over this. Urged him to phone Simon and actually talk to him, because I felt it was very unfair the way that they portrayed Simon. The rest of the team thought it was unfair. Well, obviously, apart from the nuisance troublemaker, we don't have any dealing with them. And Simon's actually getting sent hate mail. People are actually sending him direct messages, which is abusive, harassment. It's uncalled for. I mean, I don't know who these people think they are. But I've also seen really nasty memes pop up online about Simon, and it's totally unjustified. So I don't know at this stage what they can do about it in terms of, they can't re-edit the program because it's already gone out.
Otis JB's come up with a good comment saying it is insane. The whole point of GMRC and model railways in general is to have fun, and at the end of the day, it's ridiculous that to do that, to have someone especially, can't get my words out, someone especially for something that should be inclusive. I think that's how, and friendly is how it makes up. Spot on. You can't. Yeah. It's a perfect response, and I think that the way to respond to these sort of things is to actually stand together with the people that support you. I've been on the recipient end of quite a few different things for various reasons.
I mean, I get trolls on the YouTube channel. I mean, I think everybody who puts themselves out there, does videos, and actually creates content, unfortunately, there's a type of person who just sits there relishing the chance to sling muck at them. And, it's completely wrong. But I think the rise of the anonymity that people feel on the internet has kind of allowed these people to feel that they're invincible, that they're untouchable, and that's why they do it, because they don't think there's any comeback for it.
Yeah, and I know that there's a few people that openly try and have a go at me every time something's said, and you go to those shows where you see them at, and they're absolutely nice as pie, and it's like there's no difference. You should treat people how you expect to be treated. Yeah, it's and actually, as simple as that.
It's an interesting point about being vilified in the edit. What was his name? The guy, the team leader for Missenden Modelers, and they got so much flack for that episode where
was that on season 1?
Season 1, and they were like, "Oh, we're going to win this. Shake hands with the winner," and they didn't. They crashed out, and then they had far too many pre-builds. They didn't finish their models.
It was 3 streets of a pre-build. I mean, I can see the logic of each one is a build, but
I think the problem was with the rules. The rules were too ambiguous, and actually, if you looked at the rules and went, "Well, we can munchkin these to the extreme." If it had been a real competition, you just like deploy the lawyers sort of thing. But I think in the edit for that, I think was his name Barry or something? Barry from Missenden Modelers?
I think so.
He was made out to be the villain. And actually, when you meet him and talk to him, he's not like that. And I think even he said, he felt that he'd been set up a little bit. And, in some respects, it takes 2 people to be set up. The setter up and the settee up. Settee? You know what I mean? It's like the person
definitely.
being set up. You can... excuse me. Sometimes you're your own worst enemy for falling for the setup. But what it showed was that the way it was edited made him look a bit more of a Wally than he actually was. And he was at the final, at the filming of the final, he was in the audience, so we got to have a chat with him, and it was quite interesting to talk to him about that. And I feel in some respects Simon has become the victim of a setup a bit like that. I wouldn't say that the TV company have done it on purpose. I don't think they've set out to vilify Simon, but I think in some respects maybe they haven't really thought of the consequences of using the bits that they have out of context.
Potentially, there is that element of you need a bit of drama to make good TV. That's always been said, and I think one of the bits from season 1 I remember is my friend Gary at Cheeky Tech, who said, I think he said he had about a week or 2 weeks to go and order his bits that he needed, and they couldn't get enough resin. It would all sold out, so they couldn't get enough water to do their water scene. And they basically portrayed it as though the guys hadn't pre-planned everything, and it was like, no, actually they had, but because they'd had a change of team leader at such a short notice, they couldn't get all the materials. But unfortunately, in the post edit afterwards, it looked like Gary unfortunately didn't order everything.
And that's very that's naughty editing. And another way that we fell foul of this, the derailment that they made a big thing about. Can I just officially put it out there? The derailment was caused by the track laying on the Halloween layout and the necessitation of the filming. And we were told you don't get marked down for derailments caused by the poor track that every team got as a fait accompli in the semi-final layout. They came with track attached, you worked with what you got. And the problem we had was that there was no adequate protection on the end of that line where it reached the baseboard end. So in storage it had got knocked, and the rails were just peeling out of the chair. The chairs were all shearing off. So what we discovered was we could run the train in the forwards direction that it has to go, that it appears to go in the edit, but you couldn't reverse it without it derailing. And what they would do is they'd film your train going across each section, and then as soon as it disappeared out, they'd stop, they'd then reposition the cameras, reverse the train back, and then have it as if it's then straight away appearing. So what happened was it came out onto the Dr. Evil layout absolutely fine. They then stopped, repositioned the cameras, reversed the train back, and of course it derailed as we said it would. But they didn't give us the opportunity to put it back on the track before we brought it back through. And it really annoyed me because Kathy's comment, like, I really think you need to check your track, was absolute rubbish, because they made her film that on the first day, and then after she even apologised us and said, oh, the TV company said it would, like, we've got to create a bit of drama for TV. So it wasn't even her comment. But they then used that comment out of context to justify marking us down with a derailment that we were explicitly told we wouldn't have counted against us, because effectively it should have been in the outtakes. So it's just another example of how they can edit it to look like however they want.
Outrage. #recount.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Railmen of Kent built an amazing layout and were deserved winners. This is not sour grapes. It's just saying don't believe everything that you see on TV, because the edit can make things seem any way they want it to.
Manthony 1956 has a question for you regarding Shed Chat.
Yeah?
Are you now going off daylight savings Sunday, November the 3rd?
Are we? Why? What time actually is it?
That's what they're...
Oh,
will
yes.
you be on next?
So we're on GMT at the moment. We're back on GMT, aren't we? So it's... Oh, what are you with these Maltesers? You really are spoiling us, Cupboard Monkey. Oh, hold on.
Oh,
Hold on.
other chocolates are available.
Yeah,
from
but
other stockists.
I am not a cupboard monkey.
Oh.
However, the Cupboard Monkey, these are her favourite chocolates. So if you ever want to buy the Cupboard Monkey a present of a chocolate variety, you can't go far wrong with Maltesers. I, on the other hand, like Revels. Just thought I'd put that out there.
Do you want me to go and get you some?
No, I don't. I'm cutting
sure
back.
New Juncture says #justice for Jenny. I wonder if that one will get trending.
You can try and trend it if you want, but I think it's important. Like some of these things, as unfortunately Simon has found, the trolls latch onto, and they think that what you see in the edit is exactly what happened and nothing else happened. And actually, there's a lot more to the story. And it's after talking with, I'm going to call him Barry from Missenden Modelers. Barry, if your name's not Barry, you go, but I'm called Dave. Really sorry, I'm remembering you as Barry from Missenden Modelers.
If in doubt, call them Dave.
Yeah, the army of Dave gets
Exactly.
everywhere. But you know, he'll tell you if you find him at an exhibition, ask him about how it didn't quite go down the way it was edited to look.
One of my friends, and I'll have to give him a shout out, Keith, CSX Rensville, has joined chat. He says he's not seen the final yet. But interestingly, he does model HO American. So if you're interested, it's got an amazing little shunter layout that I can't figure out how to work to save my life. But it's fantastic. You can sit there for hours, and it's all magnets under the track.
Yeah.
And,
Well, the one that really inspired me, and you know, people say, you know, what are your big inspirations model-wise? You know, what model layout that other people have built have you looked at and thought, wow? And for me, actually, it's an American one called Federal Street Yard, and it's an American HO shunting layout. And for me, it was this sort of industrial, grimy dereliction that really, everything about that layout in my mind was just perfect. And I've still got the copy of the Continental Modeler that it was in. It's probably about 15, maybe even 20 years ago now. And I've still got that issue so that I can look at the photographs and read the article about that, because it was so inspiring to me. And I think it's one of the things as well, I always advocate this, is don't just look at what, if you model UK outline, don't just look at what UK outline people are doing. Have a look at what people who model American stuff or Australian stuff or European stuff or Scandinavian stuff, because actually there's a lot of different techniques for doing things that go on in these different groups, and it's nice to borrow from them. And also, you know, in terms of American modelers, Kathy Millett is actually an American HO modeler. Because if you go and look at her YouTube channel, that's her big home layout. I can never remember whether she's in the basement or the loft or a spare bedroom. I can't remember. But
it seems to change every time I watch one of Kathy's videos, and it's always like, oh, she's there, here, there.
Yeah, and she's probably sick and tired of the trolls trying to judge her layout. Going, oh man, they're going to give you a 2 for creativity. Ha ha ha. That must really be annoying.
Speaking of new builds, Sparky's in the chat. 107. Hello, Sparky.
How are you doing, Sparky?
His shed. I say it's a shed. It's an outbuilding, Sparky. It's not a shed. It's huge. That's now got power in it, so he's getting close.
I saw the video update on YouTube about that. I don't know, is it part of your live stream, or because I come to a lot of these things afterwards, so I just see them as ordinary videos. But yeah, I did see the update on that.
What else we got? Mark Samways asked me, asks you, have you seen my chat with Mr. New Junction? And would young Jenny like to ask him any questions whilst he's in the chat? Mark Samways.
I'm trying to find the comment on the screen.
That one.
Yeah. Has Jenny seen your chat with? Yes, I have actually.
Yeah.
Because I did have a look at that. Because one of the cryptic questions you asked was have you seen this? Because I want to follow a similar format. So I made a point of going through and going, what sort of questions is he going to ask?
See, someone who does their homework, Richard, unlike you.
What did he go? Sorry, who are you?
What are you doing in my loft? Get out.
I thought you came to read the meter. It's downstairs. What are you doing up here?
You joke about the meter. He genuinely was like making me wanting to pay. He's like, come on, my time's precious. Pay me.
What?
That's a joke, obviously. That's a joke.
Cheeky. Although saying that, people have asked me would I do GMRC 3, and I have been asked to be part of a team, and my thoughts were that to do GMRC 2, I used all of my holiday entitlement from work. Because, you know, there's 3 different big blocks of filming. Plus there was a thing for backstory, which they hardly used any of, but it still meant that, you know, I had to have a day prepping the place, basically hoover all the carpets and dust. So I was like, so it didn't look like we lived in a pit. And then a day of filming, plus all the building of the layout. And I used all of my holiday entitlement. So if I did it again next year, I'd have to persuade the production company to actually pay me for my time, simply because otherwise my entire holiday for 2 years will be filming GMRC.
Yeah, it's that And I remember I got asked about season 1, and that was my biggest issue, was I couldn't give the time it needed to actually go on and do it. And it's a shame because,
Yeah.
you know, I love working with Gary and the Shunter team that was there. I love those guys. I've got no immense amount of time for those people. But like I said, I don't think. Oh, Les. Hello, Les.
Hi, Les Cliff. It's great to see you. That is the team captain of Team Rail Riders there, Les Cliff, who is an amazing modeller. If you haven't already done so, go and check out the Friends of Not Lobia channel, which features an awful lot of pictures of Les's modelling work. He is superb.
Could one of the spanners go and find the link for that? That would be much appreciated for people.
Oh, yeah, because I can't, because we've had an issue with OBS. I haven't got a browser to find the link.
Which I've fixed, by the way. So you can't fix for this one, but the next
Yeah,
one will be fine.
it came a bit too late because we basically, it's 7 o'clock. Oh, we'll set it up and make it work how we know.
It's working fine. There's 123 people watching.
That's pretty good, actually.
It's great to see that kind.
I always feel quite humbled that so many people choose to spend their Monday evening like listening to me just yabbering away. There's the Jenny Monday Club.
The other side of that is Monday TV.
I don't know. See, one of the things is I don't watch TV. I don't even have the means to watch live TV because the reason for this is about 5 years ago, we came to the conclusion that a TV license was a very expensive way of watching a couple of episodes of Doctor Who a year because...
All 5 of them.
Yeah, and you know it was cheaper to just buy the box set, so we just weren't getting time to watch TV. So we ditched the actual box that let you watch it. Excuse me, and we ditched the TV license and never looked back.
New Mills Model Railway says, "But you're a wonderful moderator and a pleasure to chat on here."
Oh, that's
See?
very kind. Thank you.
You're £20 in the post.
My £20 is in the post.
No, that's what we're paying
right.
for the really nice comments.
Yeah.
Islet Transport says, "I got a London Underground S-Stock coach body for £10. I'm hoping to make some sort of conversion."
Oh, interesting. Is it Bachman that did the model of the S stock?
Yeah.
Because that's actually a pretty good price.
I think they did a limited edition run for the London Transport Museum.
Yes.
And the price of those, I think they did at the same time as the 266s. So they did the Harry Beck 66 with the tube mat.
Yeah.
Which was amazing. Fixed, what was Keith said there? Fixed a browser, you turned it off and on again.
Yeah. Didn't work.
Unfortunately, because the Mac has upgraded to Catalina, the privacy changes means you need to do something slightly different. So that's what it is.
And it wasn't just OBS that it messed about. It messed about Photoshop, which was an annoyance for Zoe because that's what she uses to draw the comics. It even messed about QuickTime, and you thought, it's an Apple product. How does an Apple product suddenly go, no comprende? It was just... my iPhone as well, when that updated around the same time, it trashed all the settings on that. I think they've got the interns doing the software development at Apple.
Like I said upstairs, when I was at New Junction, we'd set up both cameras and stuff because we originally wanted to cut between him and me talking. And we literally opened Open Broadcast software, and it was like, nope, computer says no. And we were like, oh.
It is annoying. When did computers become such a chore like that?
Oh, I know you mentioned this to me upstairs, but Les has just put most of Not Lobia to the tip today.
Oh, Les, you should have said that I come and picked over all the bits of scenery, though I presume that you saved quite a lot.
I was genuinely shocked when you told me that, because I've been watching that.
You didn't know
I
that
had no idea.
them.
No, I sort of I was drawn in, and then I saw it in the paper, and it was like, wow, have you seen this? It's amazing.
Yeah.
And then
unfortunately, it now only exists in memories, which is a real shame. But I hope you saved as much as you could. What's that? Gamehammer Classic Gaming. About 1981, Jenny, the ZX81 crashed if you touched it wrong. I remember the was it the Acorn Archimedes with the loading off cassette tapes?
that's before my time.
Oh, you young whippersnapper, you. There's underneath there is an Amstrad 464 CPC with a tape drive, and somewhere behind me, the cupboard monkey will come running in a moment because we're talking about her beloved computers.
Whoa, I like trapped. Sorry, what's not Wow, I like transport. Go and
Go
Google
find-
that now.
Not Lobia. It's Les's Model Railway. I don't know. What have I just picked up? What the heck is that?
It looks like an old SNES cartridge.
No, it's from 1979. Oh, that's for
Philip
Texas
Page, hello.
Instruments.
Hello, Phil.
I get it wronged for putting them in a.
I love watching
I
Phil's.
told you, didn't I? Tell
Yeah, she's on the way out now.
Hark. We're going to get told off for messing
You
with the game.
summoned me. You were prodding my
I didn't.
stuff.
I didn't
What
do
do
this.
you need?
I was going to show people software on cassette tape.
Ah, there isn't any in here.
That'd be why
That's
I
why
couldn't
we
find
can't
any.
find it.
I can, however, show you software from something that most people won't have seen.
I'm sorry, Zoe. You appear to be confusing us with somebody who's interested.
This is a cartridge from the first 16-bit computer ever made in 1981. Texas Instruments. Anyone remember the Texas Instruments?
That was definitely before my time. It was 6 years before I was born.
Oh God! Somebody put it back in the box.
The first 16-bit computer. Lovely solid state drive you can put your cartridges
Oh
in.
come on! You're getting dust bunnies all over our pizza.
And the best part is, most places that sold this didn't sell the cartridges to go in it.
Okay, cupboard monkey, would you mind getting back in your box?
I'm not a cupboard monkey. Technical monkey.
Sparky, that's exactly what I thought. I was thinking Sega Mega Drive.
Oh yeah, Sega Mega Drive. That's what these are.
Yeah.
So, like quality game there.
Absolutely.
Gods. But we've got everything from like oldie worldy through to not quite so oldie worldy.
Yeah.
Richie Ward Apartment 1915 says, what's your favourite modern image locomotive?
Is that to me or to you?
I don't know. Well, let's go to you first. It's your show.
Favorite
You
modern?
love the Pendolinos.
No, I don't.
What's wrong with the pen? Do you not like the 8 degrees of tilt?
It's the smell of the toilets getting hot on a hot summer's day because I think somebody's routed the exhaust right by the waste tank.
They did exactly the same with the Voyagers, hence they're known as vomit comets.
Yeah.
Well done, Alston. Thumbs up.
See, I think modern locomotives. What do you term modern? I mean, is a class 60 modern anymore? Or a 92? They're about comparable with each other. Are they early 90s or late 80s?
Early 90s for the Pendolino.
No, the 92 or the...
I'm not sure for that one.
Would you class
Someone
that...
in the chat will know. I would say the 92 is more modern. It's still currently running now. I think it's probably the best way to...
I'll be
to
honest,
phrase that.
having been forced to look at them a lot, the class 66 is starting to grow on me a little bit. Not like I'll get one, but it's like it has a charm to it. But then again, they're not exactly modern anymore. When did they...
You need one in the back like Hatton's has, as soon as it's shed chat for Monday. That it would be
what, in their
a
live
shed,
stream?
a shed in a shed. Yeah.
Could do. Yeah, I'll get a little model shed. I've got a telephone box. I've got Doctor Who's TARDIS. Keeps moving it around, and that must be quite a cliche on people's layouts. You get the Hornby Scaledale telephone box, and you just randomly move it around your layout.
I have a Lego figure that my son gives me, and it makes an appearance in every video.
Right.
And there's one person who keeps continually spotting it. I'm sure they go back and go, it's here, it's at 3 minutes 58, and they go through and they try and find that Lego.
That is a dedicated follower. Anyway, do you want some
I'm good with that one. I've smashed through some of the margarita, so help yourself.
Oh,
if you
keep
want some of
eating,
that.
keep eating.
I will do. What else do we got? David Costin. So, yeah. Is it true that Jenny has built and finished 340 layouts in the time Dave's decided he's happy with one? Yes. That seems a fair comment. I can't really argue with that.
I've lost count of the number I've built. I get the fun out of building. Once they're built, I'm bored with them.
I'm like you, so I get to the point where the track's down and I'm really happy with it, and then I think, oh, this would be a really cool idea because someone sent me a picture, and then my whole thing changes.
Do you pull the track up and start again?
Yeah, so I had my original loop, and then someone said, "Oh, do you want to go for an exhibition build? I've got a couple of slots coming up at a few shows." And I thought, I've always wanted to do one, and because I was changing jobs and house and stuff like that with the last one that's now Gooley Lane, that's now on the exhibition circuit. I thought, you know what, I am going to give it a go. I've got some spare time now, so I'm trying to get back into building that. a lot of people. What is the train that people call the Ninja Turtle? Sparky said that. I have no idea. I've never heard of a train called that. Leslie Gilpin says Class 37's early 60s. I suppose for me, modern it's got to be the Class 175. I really enjoy that. No one's in the chat is going to like that model.
I know they might do.
I really like that unit.
There's quite a few people who are into the modern stuff. So it's like what I said before. It's such a broad church. There's people who like everything. Every locomotive, every unit, every item of rolling stock has its champions,
Yep.
and conversely, it has people who can't stand the sight of it. So a lot of the modern image, like for example, the modern image wagons, I think look really boring. But I do have a soft spot for, they're not really modern anymore, HEA hoppers. There's something about them, I can't quite put my finger on it, but I really like them. They look nice in a train.
I think Hornby magazine were giving them away last year at Whalley as the 3-pack. If you subscribe for a year, you got a pack of these wagons, and it worked out. It was about £4 better off to get the 12 months, because you get this pack of wagons that was like £36. It was great.
I know, was it Model Rail did one where, no, it wasn't Model Rail, it was something like Hornby magazine did one where if you subscribed you got a free locomotive, and it was basically surplus stock they'd got from somewhere of something like a K1 or something, I think it was.
Yeah.
And it was, when you looked at it, it's like the subscription's cheaper than that locomotive would cost me if I went out and bought it.
Brockwell asked me what attracts me to model Arriva trains. Simply that I used to go to Llandudno Junction every weekend with my nan. We had a caravan out there as like a family caravan type thing, and it started off as the 37s in regional was when I first started going on there. I think with Mark IIs, maybe Mark IIIs. No, I don't think it was Mark IIIs, Mark IIs.
No, it would have been Mark IIs.
It started with them, and then when the 158s came in, it was like, oh my wow, air conditioning and windows, it was amazing. And then it moved into the Class 175s.
In fact, were you going out there? They used to be Mark 1s with like 31s.
Yep.
Because Bachmann did the Mark 1s in the regional railways livery. For some reason, they don't appear to have redone them particularly, but they did when they first brought out the Mark 1s. They did them in the regional railways livery, and that's one of the liveries I actually really secretly quite like.
Yeah, it is. It's. I was really torn between which era to go for. Was it the Arriva trains or was it the regional? Because I have fond memories of both. You don't get the thrash and clag of a 37 in Arriva trains Wales.
Yeah.
But you do in regional, so it's.
I suppose
swings and roundabouts.
But could you not do multiple eras? Or...
I could do. The issue I've got with that, I suppose, is I have to change the depot building that I have.
Right.
Because that's a fairly modern building. I'd probably have to change that, and I'm not sure what I'd replace that with. That's my other issue.
I mean, does it just lift up? Is it something that you could conceivably build a different depot building?
Oh yeah, definitely. It's got its own little MDF hard standing base that I can just lift the shed off and put another one on. But it would be what shed?
I suppose you'd have more of a steam era shed, I guess, looking very down at heel, possibly with the roof all falling apart. Because likely as not, what they would do is they would demolish the old shed and replace it with a modern utilitarian building at the point that it just became a maintenance liability. The railway's very good at doing that, just destroying historical buildings, because it's like, nah, I can't be bothered fixing the roof, we'll just flatten it.
What else have we got? I seen the one that looks like a Siamese cat, very new. I thought I heard it called the Ninja Turtle. Sparky.
It's not the 68, is it, or the 70?
I don't know. Jeff says it could be the 800, but
it's ringing a bell, but I couldn't help you.
Someone in the chat must know. I'm sure someone will. At least be able to go and disappear and Google it for us.
We've got Angus's trains in there. Always good to see you. And let's have a look. What do we got? Yeah, Jeff Roadman Jumble Lane Model Railways. Then might be thinking of the 800. Just having a look. I've been neglecting a lot of the comments. Oh no, blooming computer.
That's because you're having too much fun eating pizza.
I like pizza.
I'll pick up for you. What do we have? Leslie Gilpin says Llandudno was Class 40s and the Mark 1s. It was, but I got to Llandudno Junction.
Well, no,
so
the 31s worked that route as well, because
37s also did crew to Holyhead, I think.
Well, the 31s, I'm sure, did Manchester Victoria to Holyhead in the regional railways liveries.
Yep.
Because I've got a model of, I think it's North Yorkshire Moors Railway that Hornby did in 2012, 2011. But there's also, there's one with a really Welsh sounding name. Or, no, I'm confusing it with the 37 with the Eisteddfod Genedlaethol. You need to
Try
run
pronouncing that after a few.
Eisteddfod Genedlaethol.
David Costin says it's true about demolishing. Look at all the signal boxes that now are rail demolish. It's interesting that there is one still at Pwllheli. As you come out of the station on the opposite side, so you have to go to the quay, and it's all boarded up on one side. But the rest of it on the front to the track side still looks intact. It's really weird. It's like,
Presumably it's to stop yobs from chucking bricks through the window from where they can access.
I guess so, but it's one of those. It's like, if you're not going to use it, open it up for people to use as another building, I suppose, would be.
Usually, I think the problem is they're not really suited to anything else, because you'd have to take the lever frame out. Otherwise, most of your floor space is taken up by a big lever frame.
I did see there's one I'm sure it's in Scotland, and they've changed it into a bird watching post.
All right.
So
Is
it's
the
on-
railway still there?
No, so obviously the railway's gone.
Right.
The station building is now a pub, so that's the best place. And then the signal box is a birdwatch hut, and I can't remember where it is. I'm sure someone will be able to find out in the chat.
There are a few places where they've been turned into things. There's one down in East Anglia somewhere on a disused line that somebody turned into an artist's studio, because you had all the windows for the nice natural light. Although I'm never quite clear, is the lever frame still in it? I have a feeling, though, that when they built them, you can't take the lever frame out without pretty much ripping the building
Taking the
apart.
wall out.
Yeah, pretty much you have to take the roof off to crane it out. So I'm guessing that the frame would still be there.
Just the cables would have been cut.
Well, yeah, it wouldn't be connected to
Yeah.
anything.
Where was I? I saw one that I wanted to read out. Warrington Train Spotter 2778 says, "Do you regret doing GMRC now?"
No, I don't. Why would I regret it? I know we had a problem with one member of the team who, for those of you who've arrived late, was not Simon. We had a nasty piece of work in the team who was lying to us, manipulating us, threatened violence to the film crew, nearly got kicked off the shoot. Do I regret it? No, I thoroughly enjoyed the experience. Could it have been better? Yeah, if we'd have known what he was like from the start, we'd have had somebody else on the team. But, you know, it's one of those things.
Thanks for asking.
Hmm?
Thanks for asking, by the way.
Asking what?
Did I want to be part of the team? Left out again.
I thought you got asked by somebody else.
I did.
Well, there you
Gary,
go.
who's in the chat, he's just turned up. Cheeky Tack, hello.
Oh, hi to you, Cheeky Day. So, I take it you couldn't do it for...
Just couldn't get the holidays. It's at the time it was filming, I'd just had my second child. Not literally me, that'd be a bit awkward. Well, I still got the belly for it. And it just, paternity leave and everything just didn't fall
Yeah,
right.
because it is a big commitment. People look at it and go, oh, you know, it's only like 3 days here and 3 days there. But actually, there's a lot more than that. And each filming block was almost a week, because by the time you've got ready, packed all your stuff together, travelled down the day before, done your 3 days of filming, travelled back the day after.
It's a week then, isn't
Yeah,
it?
it's pretty much a week out of your schedule. And so we had 3 big filming blocks, plus the backstory filming, plus all the time you had to put in for, getting together as a team to plan the layout and this, that and the other. So it was a big chunk. I used almost my entire year's holiday allowance to film that. So I'm now in this horrible position where I have to work through to the 31st of March with no holidays available, which is not great. I have to work Christmas and New Year now because of that. So I don't regret it. I think it was a great experience. And it's one of those things, it's like I say to people when they ask what was biggest little railway like. And I say it was one of those things, you looked at it and you thought, camping in Scotland for 2 weeks, I should Coco. And then the back of your mind goes, yeah, but if you don't do it, you'll always regret not doing it. So even though I can remember there was such total hardship on that shoot, and you're up in the wilds of nowhere being eaten alive by midges, cold, wet, shivering, with leaky shoes, getting stung by giant hogweed and ending up in hospital, all these kind of things, rubbish food. You still think, you look back at it and think, I'm glad I did that.
I'm just posting in the link to the NTAs again.
Let's have a look.
So yeah, I've just posted that in, the link again. Richie Ward Apartment 1915 says the GMRC this year has inspired me with helping me with more ideas for my layout, and I think that is exactly why the show is great.
Yeah, because you don't have to kind of copy an entire layout, but there'll be aspects of things, there'll be techniques. It's like I was saying before to you, I got rung up by Gauge Master, who one of the sponsors, asking me, which products exactly did you use when you're doing, on the War of the Worlds layout, it was when I did the corners at the front, and I got my nickname, the Queen of Speed Modelling, doing that. And people are saying...
Is that going on a t-shirt?
It may be part of the merchandise lineup, it could be. But they're actually asking, well, we keep getting asked, what materials were you using? So, we wanted to clarify with you, can you remember what you used? And a lot of it was Gauge Master products. So there's a lot of people looking at that and thinking, I want to try that on my layout. And I guess the crochet trees as well, which drew unfair criticism from the judges. Actually, the public at large seemed to have warmed to that. And it made me feel, looking at that on the Loco Ladies layout, there was very much Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds, a Beatles-esque Yellow Submarine vibe going on. And it made me think, actually, a psychedelia layout would have been brilliant. I think for me, what would have made that perfect would have been had a little magic roundabout carousel somewhere in those crocheted woods with Dougal and Zebedee.
So the fairground, it really reminded me of what Gary did with his little water slide in season 1. Mm-hmm. Now I've seen that thing in the flesh, and it is amazing. And
oh, is this the Grantham layout?
No, yes, it was the fairground, and they had a little water slide, didn't they? But it wasn't real water. Whereas Gary's,
I think it was supposed to be.
Whereas Gary's was real water, and
you see, one of the things I'm going to sneeze in a minute. I'll hand that over to you, so I don't.
Save the pizza.
Yeah, save the pizza. But actually, I've talked a lot about things that went missing in the edit about our layout. And actually, some of the things that, if you go over to Les's website, the Friends of Not Lobia, you'll see the full lineup of photos and video behind the scenes. And what you will see in there is several of our key animations that were edited out without trace. And the main, well, they're actually yours.
Oh, help yourself. I'm happy with my margarita.
Are you sure?
Yeah.
There was a Jacob's Ladder, which anybody who isn't familiar with electronics, a Jacob's Ladder is when you see the oldie worldy horror films, and you've got these two electrodes, and there's this spark that climbs up and goes like zzz, zzz, like that. That in electronics terms is called a Jacob's Ladder, and it's done using super high voltage to make the spark jump. And we had one of those as a centerpiece of the evil lair, and they filmed a whole load about it because Tim, one of the presenters, one of his hobbies is electronics. He loves making things out of electronics. So they filmed a whole piece. He was like really marveled in this. Marcia, who built it, even he got a phone number so he could contact her to ask some details about building one, and they completely edited it out like it wasn't there.
Wow.
There was also, the bit in the Austin Powers films where he does that like 1,000-point turn. He's in the little tunnel trying to turn.
Yeah, and he just keeps doing that.
We actually built that. They never showed it or mentioned it. Even they did film it. There was also, they didn't show our time tunnel, which was another working animation at the back. And they made out like we didn't have a lot going on. We also had loads of cameos. We had the Fembots. We had Fat Bastard. We had...
beat that out.
Yeah, we also had, the camera where they got the open top double decker bus.
Yep.
And they got Burt Bacharach on the piano. We built that.
Was that meant to be in Piccadilly Circus, that one, or just somewhere outside? Wasn't it?
Well, we had a little thing with a little sign saying English countryside and an arrow pointing, and there was just like a little telephone box and a post box and stuff. We had all these cameos, and they didn't even show. You know, they 3D scanned the presenters. They showed where they ended up on the other. They showed them for the other 3 layouts, but they didn't. They made no mention of them for ours, and they were there on there. So there was a lot that was edited out of ours. But by the same token, I remember quite a lot of stuff on the Grantham layout, which has been lost to the edit as well. So it wasn't just us. And in fairness to the TV company, there's only so much you can fit in the time period. But I just felt it was a bit naughty making our layout look like it had less on it than it actually did.
So Brockwell Lane has beat me to my point. It was Model U that did the 3D scanning.
It was, yes.
And those guys were amazing. Me and Richard saw them at Whalley last year, and we said, "Oh, we'd love to do a bit filming you going through it." And we got down to it, and it was 6 people deep. We just could not get to them to do it. It was
very popular. When I was there at Whalley, I think it probably was last year, on the Sunday, because there was a sci-fi convention in the other hall.
Yes, it was last year.
And they had, on the Sunday, there were people coming through cosplaying. Because somebody would say, oh, if you go to this place, you get scanned and get a little figure made of yourself. So the cosplayers were coming through from the sci-fi convention to get scanned on the Model U store.
I remember one of the guys I used to work with, I won't name him, but I always remember I was coming down to the train station on the Saturday night, and he came up dressed as the old superhero from SpongeBob SquarePants. If anyone can remember what he was called, I can't remember off the top of my head.
I've never watched it.
Oh, he was dressed brilliantly, and it was one of those where you see somebody and you think, is that? And it was like, yes. And I nearly missed my train because we were chatting for that long. Gary says we had loads cut from our series, including the fact that we had Bluetooth powered Lego motors.
Yeah, I mean, and I think it's a bit disingenuous where they make out like, oh, there wasn't enough creativity or stuff going on in this layout, and actually, they just ditched it in the edit. It was there. You know, some of those things were. You know, one of the big criticisms that was levelled against us was, oh, it's just like light shows. There's not enough things moving. And our finals layout had loads of things moving, and then they go and cut out quite a few of them, and just dropped from the edit. And when you see the little animated where they draw like a plan of what the team's planning on building, they weren't even mentioned on that. They were just gone, and it's like, oh well, thank you very much.
What was how about some Model U YouTubers, yourself, New Junction, Everard? They would sell like hotcakes. That's actually quite a good idea. It's one to add to your Monday Club merch.
That's a nice idea. I don't know how we'd do it. You'd have to be scanned by Model U, and then
So
people would buy them from Model U, I guess.
And they'd retain the scan on file to make another one.
Maybe it's something to talk to them about if they're at Whalley again this year.
You
could like collect the full set. You have us all lined up like train spotters on a platform somewhere on your model layout.
All you need is a little. I think Gary has one of him, and he's sort of stood there like that with his phone, you know, so he looks like he's trying to train spot as well. Then that'd be a nice little cameo.
Actually, I think I found in a box of stuff that came back here after the filming, I've got James the presenter in miniature model form, all painted up, looking like a super villain. It ended up on my layout somewhere. I just found him in a box and going, oh, that's where that went.
Leslie Gilpin says Barnabas Junction posted it the other day. I think he's on about the videos for the episodes. So the final was posted up there. What else have we got? Keith says Mermaid Boy. No, I think it was Barnacle Man. That was the trigger I needed. Thank you. Barnacle Man, the older one, I think was it.
It's all Greek to me. I'm afraid I'm of a generation that watched Bagpuss as a kid. Not knocking Bagpuss and Button Moon.
So he was that one on the left there. Ooh, nearly threw my phone. Yeah.
It still means nothing to me.
But he was perfect.
I'm afraid Fluella Benjamin was still presenting Play School when I got too old for kids' TV. And you're probably going to go, who's Fluella Benjamin?
That's before my time.
You know who she is, though, don't you?
No.
With all the beads in her hair. Well, she used to.
No. Sorry. Warrington Train Spot, would myself and New Junction and Everard ever consider going on the next series of GMRC? I don't think Everard would.
Why not? Time?
Yeah, he is an exceptionally busy man. And I've had the privilege of chatting to him quite a few times, and he is swamped with people now going, oh, can you come down here and do this? Can you do that? Can you do this? And that's why he's in his videos at the minute. He's kind of getting a bit. This is a hobby for me, you know.
Yeah.
I enjoy this as a hobby. It's not my day job.
I mean, I must admit, with myself, I'm finding I'm at the cusp of that, because I've still got a full-time job, 4 days a week, and then I'm finding the 3 days which are notionally my days off, I'm doing all the video filming, so I have to cram a week's worth of videos, normally over like a day, maybe a day and a half. But then on top of that, I get invited out to places, so occasionally you'll see in my videos me out and about doing stuff. And excuse me,
The last one was at Hatton's, wasn't it, with Dave?
yeah, so we went over there, Les and I did, and we spent a morning, and we filmed a video for my channel, and I think it was 3 videos for them. So not next week, but the week after, I'm going over to Rails to film a video. A couple of weeks ago, I was at the National Railway Museum filming with Rails when they announced the D class. And it's stuff like that. I've also got an invite to go down to Hornby as well and do some filming down there.
In Margate.
Yeah, so they said it won't be until after Christmas, because obviously in the run up to Christmas it's just like manic. But so that hopefully means in January there'll be something with Hornby. But then in the meantime, I've been asked to do so many reviews by manufacturers off the back of GMRC, I assume. So there's like 2 big manufacturers of locomotives and rolling stock, plus 2 smaller companies that do the same. Then also there's two different companies that do 3D printed stuff, and they've sent me like figures, and the other one's done like vehicles that are 3D printed. And then there's another company that's been sending me DCC chips for review. They're trying to kind of break into the UK market, and I have to say, they're the best chips I've ever come across.
I find...
I'm not saying that because they just gave me a load. I was using them, and normally with DCC chips, if you put them in different manufacturers' stuff, there'll always be one where it'll work fine with, say, Hornby. You put it in a Bachmann and it's jerky as anything, and you find yourself tweaking CVs. These chips, I put the same chip across 4 different manufacturers' locomotives, and every single one worked perfectly out the box.
I find that Europe is so ahead of the UK in DCC.
Yeah, it's a Dutch company.
It's shocking. I mean, the point motors I've just got, the PM5s, they work across different gauges. They come with polarity switches built in and every other shiny thing that you need. It's basically one box does everything, rather than 58 cables for 3 different bits. I don't need capacitor discharge units, I don't need polarity switches. It's all there, and that's a European one. Yeah,
I do feel that the UK scene has been really behind the times, and it's one of the reasons why in the early 2000s I started subscribing to Continental Modeler, because I just found that the UK scene was just so stuck in a rut with you get articles in the Railway Modeler. It's why I stopped subscribing to the Railway Modeler. And it'd be, I ballasted the track in the tried and tested Mitchell and Smith method as detailed in the 1953 August edition of Railway Modeler. And you're like, for God's sake, tell us what that is. Do you think we've got a massive library of this rubbish? And it just felt like the UK scene was just like, didn't move on. And a lot of things like the Pico point motors, they've been selling them since the 60s. The designs
haven't changed.
They've never changed. You can get a Pico solenoid point motor from the 1960s, and it's pretty much identical to the one you buy new now.
James Carroll says, good evening, Jenny, just joined.
Hi to you. Always good to have you aboard.
Sparky says, Jenny is in demand. Very busy lady.
I am, yeah, actually. The last couple of months has really... just really gone through the roof, and don't get me wrong, I'm not complaining about it. It's just, I think it's probably one of the reasons I keep getting invited to do like to go to events where you guys have meetups and stuff.
Yeah.
Because I'm always busy on a Saturday, it's very, very hard for me to do that, and I'm guessing at Worley we'll end up being like ships that pass in the night, because you guys will probably turn up on the Saturday and I'll be there on the Sunday if I go.
So we are going to be doing one Saturday and Sunday. That was one of the things we learnt from Getz. Was obviously doing it for one day. Thank you. More tissues. Doing it for one day is people like yourselves can't go. And ultimately you can't cater for everybody, but we try our best to be as inclusive as we can. It's not just about a group, it's about everybody can turn up. And
also I find the Sunday at Worley, certainly when I went,
it's a calmer experience from what I've been told.
I'm guessing that the Saturday is like a big crush as people rush in trying to hoover up all the bargains.
Which, in all fairness, the bargains aren't there Saturday morning because the people that are there Friday night go round setting up Saturday morning to get all the bargains. So everyone rushes in thinking, oh, it's amazing. The only thing that opens up is the Bachman second-hand stuff.
And actually, they're not discounted enough, really, to make
not.
them... you're not getting a big enough discount to make it worth like pushing and shoving people under the wheels of the bus to get there first.
That's exactly what New Junction's just said. It's the rush to the Bachman second stall. Have you thought about doing a video with Sam from Sam's Trains from Chris Tickner? I don't know who that was to. If it's to me, keep your eyes peeled.
Oh, are you doing one?
No, I can't say anything.
Can't say anything.
Can't say anything. Warrington Trace Spotter Saturday is nuts at Worley. Like I said, for me, I can't go to Worley and look for bargains because I think it's a false pretense. It doesn't work that way. They're always hoovered up. I mean, I walked round last year and found a Hornby 50 brilliantly weathered for £50 in its box. It was gone. I was like, yeah, I'll take that. Do you want the money now? Those sort of bargains aren't there.
And I think at the end of the day, a lot of the traders, why mark something down to peanuts when they know it'll sell for more money and it will still sell? I've found actually a lot of shows that this perception that there's going to be like stupidly cheap giveaway prices just doesn't tend to happen. I actually find the best source for stuff is local model shops.
Yeah.
Because they price second-hand stuff to shift. They don't want it hanging around because it's money tied up in stuff. So a lot of the shops that I go to, the second-hand stuff they get in, it changes by the day because it's just priced to shift. And that's where the good bargains are. And I've heard stories at some of the big shows that actually, like you say, that on the Friday, the people who have the exhibits there, you don't just wait until the Saturday morning to go and sift this all. First thing I always do when I go to an exhibition, I get set up as quick as possible. And I spend a couple of hours mooching. So
I always go and help. So I help Chris from Lee Models and Hobbies, Chris Bate. I always go and help him purely and selfishly, and Chris knows this, so I can have a mooch round before it opens to the public and go, oh, that's great.
I did that when I did the big Nottingham show a few years ago, and on the Friday we got set up, and then we were going around, even as the traders were setting out, we were like going, oh, how much do you want for that? And so the super duper bargains will inevitably have been bought either by the exhibitors, or actually there's probably traders as well, who if they see something at a staggeringly low bargain, they're looking as well, and what you'll find is it'll move to another stall and go up by 25 quid.
Oh yeah, I saw that at Lee when I was there. They had the club stand and there was quite a few different bits out, and I'm sure it was a couple of the Hornby, the shunter and a couple of wagons packs that you get, the railroad version. It's a red and black shunter and two wagons. They were there for about £10 each. And I saw it and glimpsed and thought, I'll wait. I don't want to buy it to then resell it. And literally there was a trader who I won't name came along and went, here's £50, took them all off and then just put them all out, and they were gone by the end of the week. He'd just upped them and sold it.
No, they put them out at 20 quid and they still sold.
Yeah.
I think what it actually says is more fooled the original retailer. They put it out too cheap. I was saying, at Lee Model Railway Show, I've had some good bargains in the past. I exhibited there
About 4 years ago.
It was not last year, but maybe the year before. And there was a stall, and they had the Hornby. It's the 3 Pullmans and the unrebuilt Merchant Navy in Southern Railway livery, and he had that in the box for about £110. and I was looking at it and thinking, that was probably a good price. And at the time, the locomotive, the new version of it, in the Hornby catalogue, was going for about 140. And it didn't actually sell until the final day. I wandered over and I went, can I have a look at that? And I had a look inside, and it was the proper up-to-date Super Detail loco and the Super Detail Pullmans with the light-up lamps. And I thought, 110 quid, it'd be stupid not to buy this, so I bought it.
New Junction says, Tony's train stall is always busy at Whalley. I think he's paid to say that with Tony.
I see. I can't possibly comment, but Durham Trains of Stanley.
It does. I do feel quite privileged in my local area because I have 4 or 5 different shops, including Hatton's, all within a sort of 20-minute drive.
Because actually, since Hatton's has moved to Widnes, it's actually a lot more convenient for me, because I remember battling through to the old shops on Smithdown Lane, the old shop, and I remember parking was always a nightmare.
It's not convenient for me. I go past it on the way to work, so as I drive into that roundabout and I go round and head down into Speak, it calls me, and I always find myself on payday just slowly turning left and spending more money with Hatton's.
I must say, I think it's one of the reasons that they invite me over to do collaborative videos, because they know that I can't leave there without spending at least £100. It's just like they rub their hands with glee when I walk in. Oh, you're here for a collaborative video. I'll just warm the till up. You'll be back.
Ron Stanbridge says, I think the Great Electric Train Show at Milton Keynes is now as good as Whalley, and it's £10 in advance. Do you know?
I've heard a lot of good things said about that one.
I think they're 2 very different shows, but I feel that Whalley is great if you want that big show experience.
Yeah, I mean, I remember when I went. I mean, you just, even in one day, you can't see
it all in a day. But if you want to go to a show, you can go around in a day, and it's got some amazing layouts and amazing traders. Getz is the show to go to.
It's not.
If you've got a weekend, you need to go. Everyone needs to go to Whalley once. You have to. You have to go and experience it.
Well, the other one as well that's in the same kind of league as Whalley is Alexandra Palace, the London Festival of Railway Modelling.
Yep.
I did that this year, so was it February or March time just gone, and I actually got invited down as a guest to do interviews because I'd done Biggest Little Railway, because I was doing the YouTube, and then also because the guy organising it knew that I was going to be doing GMRC, and it was an amazing show. It reminded me a lot of Whalley in terms of its size and what was there. But actually what I found most humbling was I didn't get to see a lot of the show, because I'd go to walk around and I'd get a few steps, and then somebody would come up and go, oh, hi, it's Jenny Kirk. Oh, nice to finally meet you. And it was great to meet people. And then as soon as you finish talking, I'd say, oh, hi, yeah, great. And then I'd turn around and there'd be somebody else waiting to talk to me.
That was one of the things I really liked about Getz, is when me and Richard organised the sort of meet thing, we got told off by security. There was so many people there who wanted to say hello and get pictures with each other. It was like the security guys came, we're blocking 3 fire exits and 2 aisles. Yeah. Move.
So did you have an actual stall, or were you just sort of...
No, so we ended up having to steal Hornby Magazine's stand. So we ended up trying to sell magazines because we kicked the staff off. Obviously it's still a stall. And yeah, as New Junction put, we also got thrown out on the Saturday night. That was a bit controversial.
Why?
We just finished filming the Hornby Awards, the Hornby Magazine Awards, which was a really weird experience. You could feel the tension in the room, because we were
What were they like for manufacturers and stuff?
So yeah, it was everything that was voted for through the Hornby Magazine Awards. So Manufacturer of the Year, Retailer of the Year, Specialist Retailer of the Year, which was Scale Model Scenery. And you could feel some of the tension between, we had a Cura scale here, rails were over there, and it was like they were in the same one.
It's
and
quite
it was
a big deal for the
manufacturers. Oh, absolutely huge. And then we went outside just to go and sort of go live and say, these are the people that's won. We kindly got permission to do that from Mike, the editor. He published the article about 10 minutes early. Then it was planned just so we could go live. And we got everything set up, and a security guy came over and was like, you're going to have to leave now. We tried to explain for about 10 minutes. In the end, they just kicked us out. We had no room to sort of argue back, and Mike was furious.
Yeah, because they're basically overstepping their bounds.
From one side, yeah, absolutely. But with everything that's gone on at exhibitions, I can also see the other side of it of not letting random people walk around when there's just sheets covering.
Yeah. But even so, I mean, I've done shows with my father with this miniature traction engine, and the fun police start to throw their weight around, and it's like, you're just a guy with a high vis and a clipboard. Will you push off?
Richard at New Junction knows what I can do with a high vis and a lanyard that you find at Worley. It's quite amazing.
Actually, it's amazing when you watch some of these crime videos. Not saying it's you, but the amount of
Got a load of new stock, so.
What do you mean you got a load of new stuff?
No, it's fine. No questions.
But no, what I mean is like a high vis and a clipboard and a lanyard gets you into so many places without anybody checking. They just see the high vis and go, oh yeah, you must be somebody official. It's why I think you get some of these people at preserved lines. They go with a high vis on. I think, what the hell are you doing? But then they march down Boulder's Brass onto the line side to take the photos. And like this high vis is somehow makes them somebody official.
That's normally me. I like my high vis, yeah.
I hate high vis. I remember the days before we had high vis. I'm old enough to remember working at dangerous places with no high vis, no steel toe caps.
A high vis vest can save you from a plane explosion if you listen to the health and safety people.
It's got me. I remember working at the container terminal. I went into the container terminal in Liverpool, and like, oh, you got to wear your hard hat. And you're looking around, and there's these big, like 40-ton containers being tracked above you. It's like, hard hat's not going to help me if that falls on me.
Hunts Heath Model Railway says a good point. Carrying a ladder also works well.
Oh, yeah.
That's always a good one, especially if you've got a high vis and a ladder.
Oh,
You're onto
yeah.
a winner then, aren't you?
Yeah. Access all areas. Because the thing about that is you also get this zone around you where people are a bit nervous of getting too close. Because they think you're going to do the Chuckle Brother things of spinning around fast with the ladder.
Yeah.
To me, to you.
Yeah. Is that too soon?
No, do you think they did that at the funeral when they were lowering the coffin? Yeah, it is too soon.
That went out really quick.
I must admit, I mean, they were the only entertainers from the 70s that I could think of who
That haven't been arrested.
that weren't doing some quality time at Her Majesty's pleasure.
Has anyone ever been to Stafford Show? Raymond Willem says it's very good but still gets crowded. I haven't been to Stafford. I find Wigan is a very good show to go to.
Oh, Wigan. I'm trying to think which ones I've been to. See, these days I'm so busy. I haven't been to a lot of model railway shows for a good number of years. I've done Ali Pally, I've done Worley, and then Lee is one which I've done from time to time. And also there's one I'm actually doing this year because I did it last year and they keep inviting me and I keep, yeah, it's fine, yeah, no problem, I'll see you next year. So it's in Rainhill and I'm doing it this Saturday. So actually my final day's holiday is being used for this show in Rainhill on Saturday that I'm taking my my exhibition layout to. I'm gonna have to clean it. I need to think of my layout.
I think isn't this Saturday also the Modern Image O Gauge one? I think it's this Saturday. I know Richard's in the chat. If you're there, is it this Saturday I'm meant to be going there with you? I think it's this Saturday. If it's not, I've got a free Saturday.
I don't know.
Leamington Spa is a great show. Air French. Gary knows Paul Chickle. Paul Chuckle is a very nice guy.
Yeah, I've heard that all the Chuckle brothers, and apparently there's 4 of them. Well, there was 4 of them. It's more than just like to me, to you, to you, to me. There's another set of brothers who were a different double act, and apparently
just not as popular.
But no, they just never went into TV. But if you're as old as I am and remember them from the 80s, the TV program that they did in the 80s. Their other brothers, the other Chuckle brothers, used to play parts in it. So they were on it with them, but they had a different stage name because obviously their surname is not Chuckle. I can't remember what it is. There's multiple.
It is. Oh yeah, definitely. It is this Saturday, the Modern Image O Gauge, and there's going to be a special announcement from Dapol on the Saturday for a new O Gauge.
What, locomotive or wagon?
I think it's a locomotive.
I'm trying to think. I would guess if it's not Modern Image, I would say a Class 68 in O Gauge. But if it's not Modern Image, I'd suggest maybe a Class 22 because they've done it in double out.
Yeah.
And it's certainly a gap in the market. Nobody else is doing that.
That would be an interesting to see a Class 68. While I was thinking about new releases, on this Saturday at Worley, Acura Scale are going to be announcing something as well. Don't know what that is yet, but they will be announcing something.
Yeah, I've heard that, but I didn't want to be really rude and push my luck and go, go on, tell me, I can keep a secret.
Also, Helgen Helgen and Apple will have O-Gauge announcements. So I'm wondering if there's a little partnership going on there.
I mean, they might both be in on the same model.
Could well be. We're seeing that in 00.
See, what I'd like to see in 00 is the last remaining BR diesel classes that haven't been released, the Class 1 and the Class 2 shunters and the Class 6. They're the three which to me are gaping emissions, especially given that there's surviving examples of all three.
Warrington Train Spotter says, are Bachmann still bringing out an East Midlands 158? Yes, they are. I've cancelled my pre-order of that though. I refuse to pay £320 for a sound DMU. I think that's excessive.
How much?
£320.
See, I mean, Bachmann's prices have gone through the roof. And probably the best example of this is the Class 411. The version that they've announced is somewhere like 300 quid.
Mm-hmm.
But when they first came out, the first release were only like $69.99. And you think that tooling must have paid itself back by now, because they're on to what, the fourth release of that?
I can't remember what model class it was, but I remember getting a heated discussion, that's probably the best way to put it, on Facebook, and I ended up working out the price of inflation over the term of its release. And it actually worked out because they were accusing the Bachmann manufacturer of adding like 100%. Well, actually, if you account for inflation, it was only a 6% increase on retail price.
Well, how much have prices actually gone up because of inflation?
If you added compounded inflation over the 10 years or so the model was out for, it was close to 70% year on year. If you add it all up, it's quite scary when you think about it. But I suppose people don't.
They reckon that actually the prices we're paying now are actually comparable to the inflation-adjusted prices of the models from the 1980s. And what's actually made people's expectations change is we had that period in the very late 90s and for about a period of maybe 10-15 years where we had ridiculously cheap models from China, and we basically got used to an artificially low price. And what's actually happening now is the market is correcting itself back to what it would have been had we not had that huge cut in prices.
Robot Monkey's got a good comment there. Anyone else excited for Project Genesis from Hattons?
Yes, I've done the video on it actually. When I was at Hattons, one of the videos that I filmed was about Project Genesis. That's gone up on my channel. And it was really interesting to talk to them about it because there was a few questions that I had from a technical point of view. Things like the middle axle on the six-wheelers, because I know Daypol had a go at that and a lot of people complained about it. So I was keen to ask about that. But also it was interesting to get some of the backstory behind why they'd gone for that. And I think that actually we're going to look back on this and it's going to be this turning point where pre-grouping layouts become viable for people who don't make kits. Because all of a sudden, for so long we've had these pretty locomotives in these really ornate liveries, and I'm guilty myself of buying loads of these things. And we don't really have anything.
I've seen the stock upstairs. There's a lot up there, a lot more than I expected.
It's about 180 locomotives, something like that. I lose count.
It makes me feel really sort of.
You got to remember, I
deflated with my 10 locos.
I graduated from university in 2000 and immediately went into a job in the media. And I was still living at home with my parents, so I had very low overheads
and lots of disposable income.
A very good paying job. And then I can remember walking past, it was actually Bolton Model Mart in Bolton, in their old location. And they had in the window some of the newer Super Detail Hornby models. And
password again.
Yeah, and a little light bulb went on in my head, and it was like, you don't need to ask anybody's permission. You can just buy this stuff. And I went in there, and it was like, I want one. And it was the ex-Lancashire and Yorkshire Pug, That's what actually grabbed me. And it was this tiny little model. You know, I was used to Hornby 00, where the smallest model, I suppose, was the R1 or the Class 8 shunter. And here was this tiny, diminutive little 040 shunter. And it just had this beautiful charm. So I still got the model, number 51222. And I bought a couple of the Bachmann's 16-ton mineral wagons to go with it. And it was like this reawakening of my interest in model railways, because I'd obviously had teenage years where I'd done nothing and gone off to university, did all the university things, ran a radio station. I ran the student radio station in Durham. I got really big into DJing. I was the top DJ sort of thing. After university, it was just seeing that model in the window that just like, ding, oh, I could just buy that. And it got me back into the hobby. What else are we going to do? Genesis. Oh, Gamehammer Classic Gaming, aka Zoe. No, it's not. It's not a Star Trek reference.
Leslie Gilpin kind of makes a good point that the quality now is better than the previous models, but I still don't think that justifies the price chasm that currently exists. For me, personally,
I think they are getting very expensive. It's not a pocket money hobby anymore, and it's when the wagons, you're looking at like 30-40 quid just for a wagon. It's not making the hobby accessible
it's
for
exactly
a new
what
generation.
Brockwell Lane has just put in there. You know,
Yeah.
when it's getting to £50 a wagon,
Yeah,
it's questioning whether it is affordable.
that's it. And you think, if you're, like 8, 9, 10, 11, and you've got an interest in railway modelling, how do you afford stuff like that? That's a lot of money. And you basically got to go and beg to your parents. And your parents are going to look at that and go, oh, we'll just get you the new FIFA game for your Xbox. You'll get more fun out of it, sort of thing. And it is a problem. It is
Partially a true story, though. FIFA is fun.
Is it?
Yeah.
Somewhere up there, we've got every single FIFA game that ever came out on the PS2. Including, actually no, it's not the very last game to be released on it. It's the third from last.
So the stock that you had on GMRC, how did you go about picking that? Were you given like a budget and go, here's?
Oh, the way
or was it your own stock?
Right, the way it worked is they had sponsors that so Hornby, Bachmann, Gauge Master, Pico, Deluxe Materials. Who else have I missed? Metcalf. So I think that's all of them. And you had a certain amount, a notional amount. You never saw any actual hard money. You just had a notional amount, and they'd send you a price list. And with the exception of Hornby, every single one was at the RRP, and you could order up to your budget amount. So you imagine when you're getting stuff from the likes of Bachmann, and it was all the Bachmann subsidiaries. So it was like primarily we were getting Woodland Scenics. Yeah. At full RRP, your 500 quid or whatever it was doesn't actually go all that far. The only exception was Hornby, who sent through the trade price list, and we were ordering at the trade price. So that's the price that, say, like your local model shop pays Hornby for the model that they then mark up and sell on. So I now know what model shops are buying in Hornby models at. But it still doesn't go as far as you think, because you've got to get all that scenic materials. So what we did was, rather than going, oh, I want shiny new toys for my own layout, we forewent buying models. Some of the teams bought themselves lovely models, used them on the thing, and we all got to keep them stuff afterwards. But we put a lot of the money into buying the scenic details, and the stock that we ran on the layouts was by and large, with the exception of the very final layout, it was our own stock. So the Class 31 with the regional railway coaches, they're mine. The 31 is actually sat on the track at the moment upstairs. If you look in one of the loops, that is the one from GMRC. The Class 142, the real track, or it may have been a 144, that was one of the team members. Some of the shots you'll see a Class 8 as Basra, the Longmoor Military Railway livery, that's mine. On the Halloween layout, the little J50 that was shunting the wagon with the hearse on, that's mine. But the Flying Spooksman, that belonged to Simon. And the two other trains were actually adapted from Hornby, Thomas the Tank Engine, and Percy and the Troublesome Truck sets. And that was adapted by Simon, but he got to keep them afterwards. And then in the final layout, the Star Train ended up being my Class 20 because the one we were provided wouldn't go round the corners. And also the guy from Backman nearly fried it because he went, right, here's your Star Train, and put it on the track. And it started buzzing angrily. And I went, is that DCC fitted? He went, no. I said, well, you might want to take it off the track then, because the track's DCC and it's live. And this locomotive was going, please help me, I'm dying.
Cheeky Tech says he's guilty of buying something because I know he had the Deltic, which is an amazing little loco, and he got that from season 1.
Well, can I just say that 3 of the locomotives in my collection upstairs were courtesy of GMRC.
Well,
One
perk.
Yeah, I've got 2 other J50s that arrived as part of the order for the final. And actually, we lucked out. They accidentally sent us the order twice, and they didn't ask for the duplicate back. So we ended up, I got 2 J50s, each with a different running number. And I got the all-new Hornby Terrier in South Eastern and Chatham Railway livery. And an awful lot of DCC chips to be able to chip them all as well.
Gary says he loves you, Jen.
Oh, thank you
There
very
you go.
much.
He is good.
Oh.
Sparky says the hearse getting flicked off was cool. Landed on its wheels when I watched.
You don't realise how many takes it took to get it to land on its wheels. I think we were all quite amazed because all through testing it worked every single time, but the hearse would oh.
Bless you.
Thank you. Sorry, terrible cold. The hearse would invariably land on its roof, and then when we started filming, they did it from a couple of different angles, and it just landed on its roof again. And then they positioned the camera for a close-up, and for the first and only time, it landed on its wheels, and that's the take that they then used. I've still got that hearse upstairs if I can reach it. It's by the haunted house, the Bates Motel that was on the grassy knoll in the Halloween layout. You'll recognise it looking very out of place on my railways, the Bates Motel. The hearse is parked next to it.
I've got messages from the wife. I know from talking to one of my local shops that Batman do their end of year clearance, and the MPV wagons that
are these sort of like the
multi-purpose vehicles that you see doing some railhead work and things like that. How much do you think they were sold for?
What, to the model shop?
To the model shops.
20 quid a pop.
A little bit more.
30 quid a pop.
It was £49 each. And you think they're now being sold for £130, £140 each? It's eye-watering. I
remember Hatton's had them in their sale, and they weren't much more than what you've just quoted as being bought from Backman. I get the impression with those that they massively overproduced them, and they were left with a lot of unsold stock. But the problem with doing that is it's something I've talked to my local model shop about. Nothing grinds a model shop owner's gears more than faithfully ordering a load of stock from a manufacturer, putting it into stock, and then that manufacturer decides, oh, we've got all these left over, we'll have a fire sale, and knocking them out at such a low price that the big box shifters can sell them for less than what that model is. Would you stop it? Oh, the finger from the cupboard monkey. Oh, don't! I've got a runny nose. That's horrible. And for actually selling them for less than what your local model shop has paid trade for those items, because then they get people coming in and go, oh well, such and such a box shifter is selling them for 30 quid each, and it's like, yeah, I'm not giving them away for less than I paid for them. Oh, see what I have to put up with?
At least it gets rid of the itchy ear.
It does actually. Yeah,
that's always a bonus.
Are you hinting you want one of these? I know I've got plenty. Are you?
I'm okay, thank you.
But help yourself, please. Don't stand on ceremony.
Don't worry, I have been. Matt Maz 2's joined. Hello, Matt Maz. What else have we got?
I think somebody a while back said they asked who got to keep the layouts.
Yes, I did see that. Who got to keep the War of the Worlds layout?
It's currently in the warehouse at Hatton's. When you see it being filmed with interviews, it
That made me miss my mouth.
it's currently in the warehouse at Hatton's. So if you go to Hatton's, you can't see it. Even if you ask them nicely, they'll go, push off. So whenever you see us filming interviews and stuff, we're actually stood in Hatton's warehouse in a quiet corner. And that's where it's currently living. The long-term aim for it is it'll go to a model railway club for sort of like long-term loan stroke storage. But that's yet to be organised. It may yet end up going on display somewhere else, but super secret, haven't fully negotiated the details. The Halloween layout doesn't exist anymore, and neither does Dr. Evil's volcano lair. In fact, the volcano lair, it was quite tragic. We were actually stripping it for bits, and most of the glue and paint was still wet.
Wow.
And a lot of that went in the skip, and it was quite heartbreaking to see it getting junked when it was 3 days previously all these things had been new in the box, and then they're just reduced to just junk. Because that was a really nice layout. I liked the Austin Powers one. At the time I was a bit indifferent because the certain somebody in our team that made our lives a living hell throughout the filming of that. But when I look back now at the pictures, I think it was actually a really good layout when I look at it. That's the one I'm really sorry that got junked. But it's space. They're 10 foot by 5 foot, the baseboards on legs. They come in 3 sections. And then on top of that, that volcano layer on top was probably another 3 to 4 feet tall. So you need quite a big chunk of space to be able to actually have a home for them. It's why War of the Worlds is actually in the warehouse at Hatton's. We physically didn't have anywhere to put it. And Hatton's were really, really kind in offering us that space. They didn't have to. And it was probably because I was quite cheeky. I think when we started filming the Halloween episode, and we realised, at some point we've got to think what we're going to do with these. And I contacted, I can't remember who it was at Hatton's. I'd done some stuff with Hatton's previously, so I built up this relationship.
I think it'll probably either be Jack or Dave, won't it? There
Yeah,
seem to be the two faces.
Yeah, Dave rings a bell.
We all know a Dave.
Yeah, the army of Dave gets everywhere. And I sort of rather, almost like tongue-in-cheek, I thought, he'll tell me to push off and jog on. I sent an email saying, look, we're going to have this layout, and we don't actually have a home for it. Is there any chance that you'd let us just like tuck it in the corner of your warehouse? And I thought he'd come back and go, well, we haven't got the space, blah, 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 health and safety. And I just got an email back going, yeah, sure, that'd be grand. So I'd like to thank again Hatton's for their kindness for providing a warehouse space to store that, because without that I don't know what we would have done with it. And it's a really nice layout, but
I know a friend of mine, Paul. He's made a War of the Worlds one in N gauge,
right?
So he's tried to recreate Horseful Common, and it's fantastic to watch because he's got the little tubular glass things with the Martians inside it.
Oh,
so
right, yeah.
He's got them set up, all the models and everything. In N gauge, it's a feat. I can't model in N gauge. I've got two fat hands.
My eyesight's not good enough. I can't see. I struggle with the detail on double O these days. Middle age.
You'll have to upgrade to O gauge then.
My garden layout is O gauge. It's a bit too dark to show you. If I turn on the CCTV, they can't see it, so it's alright. Zoe gets a bit paranoid about people seeing. You can just about see the track there. You see it?
Yep.
So that's what I've got my O gauge on. And
my car's still there as well, so that's always a bonus.
Yeah, it's not that bad an area. They'll do drug deals and knifings around your car.
Brockwell Lane says, "What do you want for Christmas? Santa might be watching."
Ooh.
I wonder if he is.
Actually, the kind of Santa I need watching is Simon Cole, because I really, really want one of the rebuilt Merchant Navy class. One of those. When I was a kid, I had a Barnstable, the Hornby 00 Barnstable, that was converted so it would run on 3-rail, and I really liked that locomotive. So, I mean, I know they're not a Merchant Navy, but they are similar.
I suppose the thing there, just don't leave the warehouse till he gets you.
Well,
While
I
you're
can't.
down there.
Yeah, go and frisk stuff. What I'd really like to know is, I don't think they've got any tooling there. All the tooling's out in China, so it's not like you can go and frisk cupboards and go, hey, what's this injection moulding for?
I know on the TV show they did show that they have some stored in the back. They have literally just on pallets, and it used to be a full room of the mould injection stuff, and the previous owners just threw it in a skip.
It's ridiculous.
Mental when you think about it.
Yeah. But yeah, rebuilt Merchant Navy, and I'd really love a Class 423, and I can't explain it because I don't model third rail electric, but I'd really like the idea of a Class 423 in the Network Southeast livery, like they did a while back, and like a fool I didn't pick one up when they were being sold at bargain basement prices.
Now you've mentioned Network Southeast, normally Tim Cooper, Scrapline, will appear in the chat saying it's the best one ever.
Is it like a magic incantation?
It is, yeah. It's like...
Network Southeast, oh hi, how are you doing? See, I like some of those...
It's like the shopkeeper from Mr. Ben. You should probably get that reference.
Yeah, I do actually, yeah. Sadly, I am old enough to remember that. I forgot what I was going to say now.
Warranty Transport, I think if someone did a Class 175, it would be Transport for Wales colours now and not a Reaver. So I suppose that I was talking to the Acura Scale guys, and they said that if you're going to make a model, they need to make 2,000, and that would offer 4 variations. So that can be liveries or running numbers. So there is room for both of them, and there's also First Transpennine, who had that before. So there's technically 3 different liveries you could have on a Class 175.
Yeah, there's always somebody who models the different periods. I think it's a misconception that people want bang up to date every time. There will be people who model, like early 2000s.
Yep.
I mean, that'd be like when I was a kid, people modelling the end of BR Steam. Is the same kind of time scale. Oh God, I feel old.
What else is there in the chat? Philip Page says he filmed City of Wales last week. Golden Hour at Bury as well. That was there for the Steam Gala at the East Lancs Railway.
Well, City of Wales is a resident loco. I got a cab ride on her. When we did the after Biggest Little Railway, it got set up to do. We got an Access All Area tour for a whole bunch of us from Biggest Little Railway, and I filmed 3 videos there actually. But they took us behind the scenes, and then at the end we were getting on the train at Bury Bolton Street to do a full ride, and it was being pulled by City of Wales, and they went, right, well, we can have you 2 at a time having a cab ride, so basically take it in turns. And I ended up doing
Bless you.
I ended up doing from Bury Bolton Street out to Haywood was the
It's a nice run. Myself, Richard at the junction, and Paul from N Trains, we came along and did that for the day. And I must admit, I do like the bit from Rottenstall. Sorry, not from Rottenstall, from
Ramsbottom
to Rottenstall. So going backwards that way. I like that, going through the tunnels and the nice scenic. I like that bit of the line. And Bury to Haywood. I think the bit outside of Bury is what it is. It's going outside of the town, isn't it? So there's a lot of industrial look.
Well, the line from Bury to Haywood, it feels a bit like the Badlands when you go through there. And I know from talking to the crew, they say they get a lot of vandalism. And there's a lot of people who still seem very indignant that the railway reopened because they were using it as a footpath and places to go walking their dogs and smoke weed and stuff. So they get a lot of issues with people, particularly with air rifles, taking pot shots at passing trains. So I've heard stories of lumps of coal being very precisely whizzed out of the locomotive at
At high speed.
Yeah.
Good. and so it should be.
Yeah.
There's it's like those who decide to trespass on live running railways. Well, what do you expect?
And then they get all crybaby and went, oh, my little boy got run over. It's like, well, what was he doing on the train tracks?
Brockwell Lane asks, money, time, space, no object. What layout would you build and why? That's a very good question.
Model layout. See, I'd always wanted to build Tyne Yard, and that's what Weir Yard kind of is. It's a homage to it. If time, money, and space were no option, no object, maybe build Tyne Yard to scale as it was in its heyday. But going above that, I always say I just buy a few miles of disused railway line and put the railway back in and just play trains on it.
I think for me, I'd like to do Llandudno Junction in its full scale, because I think that gets such a variation, and the building hasn't changed over multiple eras. If you build the building properly, you can run whatever you want.
And I suppose because you've got the line down to Blaenau Festiniog, you've got the line up to Llandudno itself, so you've got like 4 different directions going on.
Yeah, you've got the freight. What was the freight to Bangor? You've got ballast trains from Penmar. You've got nuclear flasks that you can run now, and then throwing it all the way back, you've got all your regional railway stock.
You've got the associated Octel traffic as well up to Amlwich. There's a lot going on. Certainly in the BR Blue period, it's a very interesting area, that sort of North Wales coast.
This is where I'll go back to my shed tonight and start ripping my old layout.
How big is your shed?
It is 10 by 5.
So it's actually about the same size, as I've got my garden shed, which I used to have a model of Bolton Trinity Street. Excuse me, I've got hiccups now. Bolton Trinity Street, but I called it Trinity Road because I felt it was disingenuous to call it Trinity Street when actually I'd had to make so many compromises to fit it in. So I called it Trinity Road, which is the same reason that up in the loft it's not called Tyne Yard, it's called Weir Yard.
I'd be interested to see what people, because there's 126 of you there, I'd love to know what their thoughts, what they would do with unlimited time.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting. Sometimes people throw a real curveball and say, oh, actually, I want to model this. And you go, why would you model that? And then when they explain it, it's like, hey, actually, I never thought of that.
I like it when they come back with they've got a really good backstory to it. So, I spent many a weekend as a child at this station and that. I like the backstories. Tim Davis says London Terminal on different tiers and the line that comes out from them. Isn't that like St Pancras now? St Pancras International in London. That's got, I think it's 3 different levels.
I'm not big up on London Termini, apart from King's Cross, where is it 81, they had the hotel curve, and it wasn't all the terminus. There were 2 lines that went and connected on to what's now, is it the King's Cross Thames Link line? Which there's no tracks.
London Bridge.
Yeah. I think that would make quite an interesting model.
I think, London Bridge itself would make a quite interesting model, because that, especially with the driverless functionality through it, is certainly changed the station.
There's quite a few people actually quite surprised to Warrington Train Spotter 2778. Did you give Brian a push into the skip? You may think that. I couldn't possibly comment. Thought Brian seemed nice last time he was on the Monday Club. Little did we know the truth. James Carroll at what's GJCC? Jenny fell down that deep rabbit hole. I do that all the time. I don't even know what year we're in.
Just shows you're passionate about what you talk about. That's all it is.
Yeah.
Jeff Redmond Jumble Lane says, I've had to make so many compromises modelling Jumble. I suppose that's where Rule 1 comes into it, doesn't it? You make it your own and you do what you want with it.
See, I think one of the things is that nobody truly has the space they need. Because if you built entirely to scale, I think I've read somewhere that even a small secondary line country station the platforms alone would be something like 27 feet long
Yep.
if you modelled them completely true to scale in 00. Nobody's got that kind of space. So the whole of railway modelling is a compromise. And sometimes I find there's certain things that if you model them absolutely perfectly to scale, they don't look right as a model. And actually you have to kind of, like telegraph poles, if you space them the correct spacing in 00, they actually look a bit odd. And I can't remember whether it's you space them further apart or closer together, but it's one or the other. But if you do them entirely perfectly how they are in the real world, they look stupid in model form.
What I forgot. There's a lot of different opinions. Nottingham Victoria Station. That's from Colin Wykes.
Actually, I think Nottingham Victoria. That's one that I've thought about as well, because the thing about Nottingham Victoria is it was a big mainline station between two tunnels. So it actually really does lend itself to being the scenic section of even just something like a display layout, because you'd have your fiddly yard at either end, and it's got the perfect scenic breaks. And because it was in this almost like a big hole in the ground, it was quite a constrained site. So it's quite compact for what it actually is. The other one on that line, Leicester Central as well. I think Leicester Central would make a good model, because again, it was very compact but had a lot going on. So you had 2 south bays, 2 north bays, 2 through lines on the outside, freight avoiding lines, but there was even a turntable, locomotive stabling points. There was a lot
of
in a very, very small area. What else are people saying? All the London, the different terminal, each on a different floor. Is that? Yeah, well, all the London terminals have their own charm. I always remember London Victoria. First time I went there, it just had such a different feel, because I think is that the old London, Brighton and South Coast Railway terminus. But they still have a lot of the character from the original building companies, even though we're long past 1923. They still had a lot of the air of that pre-grouping company that had built them.
Warrington Train Spotter says, has anyone seen Liverpool Lime Street model?
Yeah,
No.
it was that
we were just
Wally,
talking about that.
It's an amazing model.
The guys offered me and Richard the chance to control it on the Saturday, and we turned up, and the guy said, look, it's 8 deep. We literally, we can't. You can come back afterwards if you want. And it got to 6 o'clock, and the guys were like, look, we're just absolutely exhausted. So honestly, mate, no, they'd ran it flawlessly all day, and it takes operators at both ends to communicate well.
Yeah, because I mean,
stunning.
It's entirely to scale or something, isn't it? And when you look at it, it's, I've always said, if it looks right, it is right. But
You've missed it again.
Yeah, I keep forgetting. Yeah,
I'll keep happily eating.
Yeah, you keep them happy. But model railway building is a very broad church, and I always talk disparagingly against rivet counters, but what I actually mean is the fun police. But the people who've built the Liverpool Lime Street, it is such an amazing attention to detail, and you have to look at that and you think that is an incredible, another level of modelling to be that accurate to the real thing. There's a guy in Spain who's done a similar thing, but with Manchester Central. I don't know whether you've seen that online, have you?
No.
And he's building all the Castlefield Bridge approaches.
Ooh.
And it is just, you look at the model, and he's just made it out of plastruct and stuff. It's all like scratch built, and it's an amazing model.
I must admit, the odd saw curve has always interested me. If someone can, if you
What's that? The
new one across what used to be the track from the museum, so the big structure that they've got on the curve. But if you were doing that as an exhibition piece, I suppose you'd have to do either a really deep with fiddle yards at either end, but you'd have to have 3 exits to make it work, or you'd have to go for a triangular layout, which I've not seen many of those on the exhibition.
I think the problem with that is space more than anything. You could possibly do it in N gauge.
Yeah.
But in 00, you'd need too much depth, and I think it would just become unworkable. Although saying that, at Worley, there was, I can't remember what it was called, there was a really lovely layout that had a lot going on. I can't remember whether it was, I think it was N gauge, but there was so much going on and so much depth, and they had lines, triangular junctions, and branches down to a dock area, and it just felt like the complete model landscape. And I think that had elements of what you would need to build a model like that and get it to work. But I like how it used to be, with when the old terminus of the Liverpool and Manchester Railway. It was like a goods station, and I think that would make an interesting model in and of itself. I think it was there up until the mid-70s, something like that.
Perhaps a diorama. It would make
possibly, yeah, because you could make that quite small. Again, a lot of these inner city terminals that are like up on viaducts where space is really at a premium, they do make great models. It's why Bolton Great Moor Street Station is another one, which I've always thought that if I wanted to build a small but interesting layout of a real world location and actually try and do it accurately, Bolton Great Moor Street Station would be quite nice, because you've got a mainline terminus with 4 platforms, coal drops and some sidings. I'm still good, thanks.
I'm still good.
We still haven't opened the last ones. See you later, Cupboard Monkey.
I know there's someone on RM Web. Oh, there's someone on RM Web building Warrington Banquet.
All right.
To scale. And
That'd be huge. How many
that is
platforms does
huge.
that have?
So it's got. It used to have more.
Well, there
It's
used to
now
be
got
2 underneath on the
outside 1, 2, 3, 4 platforms now, and a single bay at the southern end of the platform. It used to be, like I said, with 2 underneath, bays at north and south. But it's since they did the electrification, it's all changed. It's gone down to a lot less.
Yeah. But you see that in a lot of places. I used to like Victoria before they ripped its heart out, and it was very short-sighted, because it was the early 90s, and I remember the old Victoria reasonably well. And their thinking was, oh well, less and less people are travelling by train. We'll flog the land off, and we only need a smaller station, so we get away with 4 through platforms and the 2 bays at the north end. And actually now, what they've actually created is a massive artificial bottleneck. So at rush hour, Victoria is awful, because there's no through avoiding lines, and there's just not enough platform faces. But because they've built the Manchester Arena over what used to be the other half of the station, they don't have a means to put platforms back in. And I think it was desperately short-sighted.
Well, I think that's why they built the extension around the side, didn't they, where the trams are now. They bought those 2 bay platforms in. Oh
no, the bay platforms were always still there, but I remember when it was like 17 platforms. It was
I know. There's a gentleman in my group, and I can't remember his name, and he's currently modelling Victoria. But back when it was BR Blue parcels and that sort of livery, and it looks beautiful, and he's really depicted it well.
Yeah, because I can remember there used to be bay platforms at the south as well, because I can remember going on shopping trips to Manchester with my parents, and then we get to Victoria Station, you go and sit on the train, it would be something like a class 108 DMU, and it would just be sat in those bays. You just get to sit on it, and there'd be loads of ruffians with the cans of cheap lager, swigging lager, and then just the driver would wander up, jump in, and away we'd go.
Leslie Gilpin says it has a total of 17 platforms, including the one running to the exchange. That's a huge amount of platforms.
Yeah, and then now it's got 6.
Yeah, 6, I think.
Yeah, because it's got 4 through platforms plus 2 bays, plus it's got the Metrolink platforms, but they don't really count. But because they used to also be, when you headed east, the line immediately split, and the Collyhurst Loop line used to climb away to the left, and now when you go out there, there's just nothing there. It always amazes me how much railway infrastructure we've lost comparatively recently. People think that the beaching period was the death of so many rail lines, but actually there was some still getting ripped up into the early 90s.
There is quite a lot going now, because Network Rail have had to sell up a lot in order to fund the improvement work, because obviously the government's cut the amount of money they give Network Rail. They have to sell off some of the buildings to pay for the improvements that the government tell them to do.
Yeah.
Seems a bit counterintuitive, but hey.
I know that there's a lot of lines in Derbyshire which were kind of mothballed that are now been ripped up and turned into cycle paths and the track bed breached. And I drive down the M1, and I sit there and think, I remember not so long since Class 66 is shunting on that bit of track underneath this bridge, and now there's nothing there, and then, there's like a cycle track and then a new industrial estate completely blocking the track bed. I was like, how short-sighted is that? Just like not so much this ripping up the track, but actually breaching the track bed so it can't easily be put back in if they actually change their mind. And there's one just south of Tib Shelf Services. I remember a track going underneath that bridge, and it's a bridleway now.
I don't remember. I was a bit young for it, but there's a section in Warrington by Black Bear Bridge, which used to be the old wagon storage yard for Arpley.
Oh yeah.
And there's a little bridge overlooking, and it's now a park, but the track bed can still be seen. So as you walk through the park, you can still see all the lines. You can't at ground level, but if you sit up, you can see where all the markings are and everything's still there.
Where there's like indentations.
Yeah, where the tracks used to be and everything else. You can see all that from height.
Well, see, I remember the line from Warrington through to Altrincham over is it Latchford Viaduct. I remember that. I can remember travelling down the M6 before they built the second viaduct, and there was a bridge just south of the is it Thirlwell
Viaduct?
Yeah,
yep.
There was a bridge just south, and there was a double track mainline. I remember the merry-go-round trains going through there with the HAA hoppers.
Yep.
And there's no trace of that bridge now, because when they widened the motorway, they just filled it in.
There is still the one in Latchford. That's still there. As a misspent youth, I remember climbing up on that bridge.
That shut in
I used to
about
live around there.
81. But they keep threatening to reopen that, but it never happens. And I believe because the bridge over the ship canal is actually in an atrocious condition.
It's horrible. There's holes all the way through the floor. It needs to come down, but no one's going to pay for its removal.
But when they built the Cottesmore bypass, they actually put a new bridge in. They didn't just breach the track bed. They built a bridge for the railway that's not been there since 81, which suggests that somebody's still got a long-term plan for it. But then I also remember at the end of the M56, there's the point where the line split, and there was like just by the chemical works, the main line goes underneath, but there was a junction there, and I can remember that with tracks on as well. And now you go by and it's just all overgrown with trees. I'm trying to think, this is getting like nostalgia reminiscing. I remember the Horwich Loco Works branch still in use. I remember going down to visit my grandparents in South Wales, and where Onllwyn coal concentration point still is now, I remember the track going further on from there, and I've still got memories of in the car going to visit my grandparents, a little, I presume it was a class 3 shunter, trundling around the line alongside the main heads of the valleys road, just trundling along, because I remember thinking they were quite a magic little thing, because they looked a bit to the 2-year-old version of me like a steam loco.
So I've took the train from Manchester Piccadilly down to Fishguard because I have family in Lower Town, and that is an amazingly scenic. But at one point it was going to get ripped up the line to Fishguard, is what I was led to believe, and thankfully it got saved because of the ferry, something to do with the ferries, and that they changed the timetable after Network Rail had announced the timetable, so the trains couldn't meet the ferries.
Yeah,
and it was all a bit hit and miss whether that line was going to survive. But thankfully it is. However, I wouldn't recommend that journey. It's about 7 hours on a DMU. It's not pretty. Yeah.
It's like Warrington Train Spotter 2778. Some of the line that goes through Lymm has houses on now. It's called the Trans-Pennine Trail. It is a shame, actually. There's a lot of these routes where you thought that at least protect the route in case they needed it as a transport corridor. Because the trouble is, once you lose it, it's gone. It's like the line from Bolton to Radcliffe through Darcy, Lever and Bradley Fold would have been a perfect route to get the Metro link to Bolton, provided a new public transport corridor not have to have the trams vying for space with the trains, which is why they keep coming with an excuse as to why the Metrolink can't reach Bolton. But except they sold the land at Bradley Fold Station for a housing estate in the early 90s. And it's like, right when they were actually building the first Metrolink, it was the perfect route to get the Metrolink to Bolton, and they just squandered
Well, it's like we as a resident of Lee, we never understood why they put the guided busway in.
Oh, the misguided busway.
Yeah, the misguided busway, when they could have put a Metrolink route.
So it felt to me with that, it's a bit like what they had in Cambridge. It was like somebody was determined to destroy the chance of like a rail line, because in Cambridge the infamous misguided busway, where they ripped up a mothballed rail line and replaced it with this awful guided busway, which was a complete and utter fiasco. Nobody wanted. They did the same in Luton with the old Dunstable branch. Track was still there. They just ripped it up and put a guided busway in. But the trouble with that is that there's key crossing points where they remove the bridge, have the guided busway then just come down to road level and have traffic lights. So you end up with the buses getting stuck at these pinch points.
When you should just converted the bridge or kept the railway.
Yeah, you do. When I was like the Metrolink through Oldham, and they got rid of the Oldham Mumps Bridge. And it's like, why would you destroy the avoiding route? Because now apparently the trams get stuck in rush hour traffic trying to get through the town centre.
Yep.
Which is like, you had the perfect avoiding route. Why did you get rid of it?
Foresight.
Sometimes I get the impression that somebody just dislikes trains and goes out of their way to destroy the infrastructure so it can't be put back.
To be fair, Thatcher did.
Not just Thatcher.
She really hated the railways.
Yeah, what was her name? Barbara Castle was another one. She was a Labour Transport Minister. Then you go right back to Ernest Marples, the guy who gave his name to Ridgeway Marples, the construction company which, oh surprise surprise, got all the contracts to build the motorways that replaced the railways. So he basically justified the need to build the motorways, which he awarded the contracts to his own company, by closing down the railways to force people to go out and buy a car and drive on the motorways.
Wow.
And he skipped the country owing the Inland Revenue a fortune. He was a right fraud.
See, nothing's changed.
Also, Gamehammer Classic Gaming. Tune in next week for more Jenny conspiracy theories. You just wait until I tell you about Area 51. Oh no, the men in weird suits are coming. No. I've been missing out a lot of the comments. So Leslie Gilpin, hey you youngsters, yeah. Must admit, my mum remembers as a kid clinging on to the 16-ton mineral wagons that were being shunted through Ustragunlice on a line that was closed in the late 60s. And was turned into a bypass road in the early 70s. And she still talks about, as a kid, hanging on for dear life as this train rattles through. They're all just like young kids. And she said it took her many, many years to work out how my grandmother, her mother, said, You've been hanging on to that train again? Oh, how dare you!" And she said she couldn't work out how she knew. And then she realised afterwards she was wearing white mittens. So they got all like the rust on the mittens from hanging on to the rusty, dirty coal wagon. So of course she'd come home and she'd have like black and rust all over her white mittens.
Warrington Banky says, I hope I haven't consumed any alcohol. It was a little worse for wear when I saw him at Great Electric, and he tells everyone he doesn't drink. I wasn't. I'm on.
The good Dr. Pepper is in town. In fact, I'm teetotal today as well because I feel absolutely rotten getting over a cold. Philip Page, I remember Horwich Station. I don't quite remember the station, but I do remember the line all the way up to, the locomotive works. I seem to remember that the buffer stops, they cut back the line, and the buffer stops were just underneath the bridge that the road went across, which would then on the other side was Horwich Station, and that was where they cut it back to. Yeah, I like transport. They keep talking about reopening the Aberystwyth to Carmarthen line, but still hasn't happened. There's a lot of lines like that. They keep talking about reopening the Leamside line, and that's an even easier proposition because a lot of the track is still there. Well, actually, until recently, they recently pulled it up at the Washington end, and somebody nicked about 4 miles of the track. You'd think that's quite
You think you'd notice that being taken away?
but it was like we were talking about before about high vis gets you all over. Apparently, they turned up with high ab trucks, and everybody was wearing high vis, and they spent several weeks cutting up the track and loading it up as scrap, and carting it away. And it was only when a chance a guy who actually worked for the railway company happened to spot when he was going home, looked over the bridge and went, I don't remember this being scheduled to be lifted. So when he was back in work, went and checked, and they went, no, there's nobody should be lifting that. So they got the British Transport Police and caught them red-handed. But by which time, there's something like 4 miles of track was gone.
I know that they keep talking about opening Goulburn West again, because obviously HS2 is going to terminate, if it ever goes ahead, at Wigan for Phase 2B, I think it is.
Which one's Goulburn West?
Well, it's just in between Wigan and Warrington Banquet. So as you come through Goulburn Junction, there's a little bridge you go under, and it's just there on your left-hand side. So the station is still there. The goods yard side of the station is still there.
Is that near Springs Branch?
Yeah, head south from Springs Branch.
Right. So when did that actually shut?
I think it was 1970 something. It shut to the public.
Right.
So most of the stuff's still there. It's all fenced off. You can still, if you're nimble enough, just jump over the fence and into the old station building you go. Unfortunately, I'm not.
That's a bit like, is it Rotherham, Masborough? There's one of the Rotherham stations. It's like they just shut the doors and left it.
Yeah, I mean it's on the outside line, and the outside line currently never gets used. It is literally, if everything else is full, it will be a engineering train that's waiting in the outside line.
Yeah.
So they're saying if HS2 goes through that section, which it will do, then they should make that an opening station. So HS2 will carry on into Wigan.
I'm presuming there's been a lot more house building in the area. So actually, the catchment area for that station is probably far higher than it was when they made a case.
There's about 6 developments going on around me at the moment.
And you could argue they should revisit a lot of the stations on existing lines that were closed, because the case for them now, like Ferry Hill and Cornforth on the East Coast Main Line.
Yep.
Because there's been a lot of houses built in that area since the station shut. In fact, there's a lot on the East Coast Main Line that actually you could make a very viable case to reopen. There's one actually near here as you go up the line towards Blackburn, Entwistle. And there's been campaigns since the 80s to get that station reopened, because there's so many people that live in sort of Edgeworth and Entwistle, and they all drive down to Bromley Cross station. And it means that the station car park at Bromley Cross, you just can't get into it because they all drive down from Entwistle because there's no station there.
Stuart Moore says one of the biggest mistakes was the closure of the Woodhead route. That could have potentially been part of HS2. Absolutely. And it's just a shame. I think the Woodhead route was before its time. There wasn't...
In many ways, yeah. Because it was part of the great big modernisation programme. They built that tunnel. It was one of the early big engineering projects that BR took on. It was to build Woodhead 3 and then electrify the line. And I get the impression that some of these closures in the 80s, there was a lot of creative accounting went into justifying the closure. And I'm not entirely sure why somebody would have such a vested interest in destroying so much infrastructure. The only thing I can think of is that it's wrapped up with, I'm a Conservative, but it doesn't mean that I approve of everything the Conservatives have ever done. And I think there was an element that Margaret Thatcher, fresh off having stamped down Arthur Scargill, who, to be honest, deserved to be stamped on, thought that the best way of stopping the unions from holding the country to ransom was to actually start undermining the monopoly on transport that the railways had. Because the thing about road hauliers is that there isn't just like one big road haulage company with one union that represents all the workers.
Nope.
There's lots and lots of little individual hauliers, and there's a lot of people who aren't even in unions, and then there's like ERTU, Unite, TGWU, all these different unions, and the thought is that they'll never all work together. You'll never get a general strike of road transport workers, but you could get a complete strike of rail workers. So I suspect some of it was to effectively limit that. And I think it was wrong, really wrong, and we're paying the price for it.
Cheeky Tech says obviously Old Oak Depot is now gone for HS2 because that's going to be the major London terminus, isn't it?
Where's that, sorry?
Old Oak Depot down near London. So it used to be the GWR sheds, I think.
I remember going there with work, actually. I remember marvelling at my memory of Old Oak Common was some of the internal user wagons because they were ancient, and it would have been about 2003, and I could just remember thinking, God, I didn't know there was any unbraked bogie bolsters still left on the system. They had one in use as an internal user at Old Oak Common.
Alec Transport's got one that's I quite like his mentioning about the route was closed in Newtown because there was flooding, but obviously the secondary route should have still been there, but it wasn't because of this closure.
Warrington Transport 2778. Are they trying to reopen the line to Colne? They've been trying to is it Colne to Harrogate as an alternative Transpennine route.
That would make sense.
It's been on the cards for as long as I can remember.
The existing Transpennine route is nearly at capacity, so you can't really get much more.
Wasn't there talk of reopening the original two stand edge tunnels? Because there's 3 railway tunnels. There's 2 single track bores, which is the original, the second one, and then they built a double track one, and that's the only one that still got trains through. And there was talk of actually putting back 4 tracks across the Pennines on that route, but the only trouble with that is that they'd have to relay the Micklehurst loop line through it's a weird sounding name and I can't think of it, but the only trouble with that is there's a lot of that route being trashed as well.
Yep. I suppose that's another reason why you need HS2, because it's putting in brand new lines. It's not.
I think it's a very expensive way of doing it.
I totally agree.
I think there's an awful lot of people with their fingers in the till on that. There's no way it should cost that sort of amount of money, and there's a lot of companies who are troughing it out of stuff like that, and actually, what it smacks of is very poor management. Because there's no way competent managers would let a project spiral that much over budget. It just wouldn't happen.
No, it shouldn't. Gary says he hates HS2.
It's very decisive. What you tend to find is anybody who lives in an area that's going to have the route come slicing straight through their village doesn't like it. But anybody who lives at either end and would use it to commute is like, oh yeah, we're all for it. I think the money could be better spent elsewhere. But by the same token, I think a lot of the problem is the incompetence in management that's made it just cost too much. If they'd have built it to a realistic budget, I think that it would have had a lot more people supporting it.
Yeah. MatMaz 2, he's got to go disappear and do some modelling. Goodbye, MatMaz 2.
No worries, it's been great to have you aboard.
I must admit, I'm one of the people that sit at the end of the line and support it. Because I like the idea of getting into London in 90 minutes or so.
What do you have to go to London for, though?
I have to go quite a bit for work.
Do you?
Yeah.
See, I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it kind of assumes everybody wants to be in London, and actually, it does nothing for the places to the north. All it does is it provides an easier way for people who want to live and work in London for living further afield and being able to afford a house and price out the locals. It almost becomes like a drain on places further and further afield, rather than getting people to strengthening the economy in Birmingham. Say what it's actually doing is it making it easier for people in Birmingham to just go and work in London instead.
Which I suppose is why you have the Northern Powerhouse trying to relink the
when I see something tangible from that, I'll let you know. I mean, you could, the Woodhead route would be part of actually doing something about a northern powerhouse or re-quadrupling the route over Standedge. What they really need is a means to ship freight from one side to the other viably.
Well, that's what Brockwell Lane's hitting on. Is he'd be in favour of HS2 if it was a fast freight only route. If you took the freight off the network, you'd increase more capacity on the existing lines.
I think
makes sense.
What they need is the means to transport shipping containers from places like what's the name of the place? Oh, it's on the tip of my tongue. My cold fuddled name. It's the big Tilbury. Is it Tilbury? Yeah, Tilbury. On Felixstowe, that's the one. If you had a high capacity route that you could ship the shipping containers from there and have inland ports, so effectively you would trunk the containers from there, and then you'd have, say, somebody like Daventry International Rail Freight Terminal. Excuse me, you'd have a dedicated container terminal there. The whole purpose would be, rather than lots and lots of lorries trundling out to Felixstowe and Harwich and Tilbury, picking up a single container and then taking it off elsewhere and clogging up the roads, you'd have this trunking that would move a huge number of containers to, say, Durft, or take them to Trafford Park, or take them to Moss End, and you just have these trunking trips, and then all the lorries have to do is do the more local deliveries, thus freeing up a huge amount of capacity on the roads.
That's what they're trying to do with the East Midlands hub, isn't it? Is to create that central place.
Is that the one at Donington?
Yeah.
Right.
I think it's Donington, somewhere around there.
I've been watching that just by, is it East Midlands Airport? What is it? Donington Racetrack. East Midlands Airport. They're building a new terminal there because there's a new railway line gone in, which shadows the beginning of the A50.
Yep.
As you go around the slip road onto the A50, you just look to your left and you see this new railway line curving round. But it's just, will it be used properly? Unfortunately, you see a lot of these. There's a lot of what you'd consider simple ideas to sort a lot of these problems, but they just never seem to happen.
Well, I think between us all, we've somehow managed to fix all of railways in the UK.
We should be in charge. That's it. We've got the wrong people in charge. Actually, I mean, I try and steer clear of politics, but one of the things that the nasty B word has shown is that actually,
Boris.
Well, no, Brexit. What it's actually shown is that pretty much all politicians are idiots. We need completely new politicians.
UK Train Spotting's just joined, which is 2.5 hours
I've just come back to hear this, and I'd like to say Margaret Thatcher. We've already been there.
Yeah, we've been there.
There's a Frankie Boyle joke, and I have to say, as I could see his point, he said, all this money spent on a state funeral for Margaret Thatcher, they should have just let the Scots handle it. They'd have dug a hole so deep they could have personally handed her over to Satan themselves. The Scots don't like Margaret Thatcher, not by a long shot.
I don't know many people that do.
I think she was, when you compare her to the alternative, it's very easy for people to forget who the opposition was. Michael Foot. Michael Foot was pretty much a communist. He was a dangerous man, and it's like, I really wouldn't have wanted a Britain in the 80s run by Michael Foot.
Blind Paul says Jenny for Transport Minister.
Yeah, I'll do it.
Yeah.
Yeah, it pays something like £80,000 a year. Yeah, I'll do it. Yeah.
Isn't the cupboard monkey a politician? Says Richard in New Junction.
Yes, she's a Conservative politician. Somebody's got to do it.
Yeah. I suppose if it pays the bills.
No, she got voted out at the last local elections. I know I said I don't do politics in public, but yeah, it's an almost ironic story. Conservative local council, actually a very good local councillor. She concentrated on the local issues, got a lot done for local people, and then on the doorstep they're all going, "We haven't sorted out Brexit." Like she's like personally out there going, "No, let's screw this up," but she wasn't. Local politicians have nothing to do with it. And they went, well, we're going to send a protest to, we're going to stick it to the Conservatives for not delivering Brexit. And they went and voted Lib Dem. So I don't know how that works.
No.
It's like, so you want a protest because Brexit didn't get done, so you voted Lib Dem as a protest. Huh? But anywho, yeah, I think Thatcher's like sort of like chalk and cheese. There's some people really liked her and a lot of people didn't. But having lived through that period, she was quite well liked at the time and helped a lot, it has to be said. I do remember the Falklands War. There's a lot to be said for a good war, to focus people behind you. She was actually all in danger of losing the election. And then the Falklands War happened. And it did the world a good for her opinion rating. Yeah. We showed those RGs what was what, didn't we?
I'm quite surprised 2.5 hours in, and you still have 110 people watching. That's amazing.
What were you thinking? I was going to slowly wear them down with my diatribe of nonsense. What's that? Robert Scott, what about Stobart? Oh, what about them? The thing about Stobart is, my father, he was a transport manager for Metal Box, going right back to like about 1970. And he dealt a lot with Edward Stobart Sr. back when they were just a very small transport company based in Carlisle. And the thing that made Stobart so big and actually made them despised by a lot of the competition was what he would do is he'd offer to haul a backload for free if the lorry was going in that direction anyway. So say, he delivered a load into, let's just say, Metal Box in Cardiff, and that lorry was going over to, say, Bristol to pick up another load to take that elsewhere. If Metal Box Cardiff had a load that needed taking to somewhere in Bristol, he'd go, oh, I'm going that way anyway, I'll take it for free. Which, of course, the competition didn't like. It's like, hey, what are you doing? Giving away services for free. You're undercut. We can't compete with free. And it built up this reputation that made, the goodwill. You can't put a price on goodwill in industry. No. And that's how he did it. It's quite savvy in a way. But you've got to remember, Stobart's isn't, Edward Stobart Sr. is long gone. It's run by his sons, and then I think his grandson took over for a while, and then there was a bit of a hoo-ha, and it's nothing to do with the Stobart family anymore.
Well, they now do flights as well. Rail.
Oh yeah,
lorries, flights.
I've seen it advertised on the back of Stobart. London Southend Airport. Do they not have a map to see how far that is from London? And that's like saying Manchester Stafford Airport.
Don't give them ideas. That might be a replacement to Heathrow.
Oh god, yeah, no, it'd be London Stafford Airport. Wouldn't surprise me. I mean, Southend is like, that's like driving to Birmingham from here. It's a long way. And when you go there, it's the pokiest little airport going. I've never flown from it, but I've been to the industrial estate there. Oh, Warrington Train Spotter 2778. We all love your company, Jenny. Better than watching you and watching Dead End. Oh, you were so kind. Oh gosh. So where do I mail the cheque to?
It'll be post-dated.
Yeah, Ian. No, actually, no, I beg to differ. Ian Ryan, she privatised the rail system. No, that was John Major.
Yep. John
Major did the privatisation thing. Robert Scott, Norbert Dentris Angle. What about them? They bought out Christian Salverson.
Yep.
And actually, the story behind that was they bought Christian Salverson because at the time Christian Salverson had the contract with Marks and Spencers for doing all of the store deliveries. So they had Salstream, which was the chilled and frozen food, and Salserve was the what became Tibbet and Britain Fashion Flow, and that was all the clothes and stuff. And Norbert Dentris-Angle bought Christian Salverson, thinking that the big prize was this massive Marks and Spencers contract. You've got to remember, back in the day, Marks and Spencers was a huge driving force. It may have fallen from grace now, But, you know, back in the day, it was massive. There's a lot of money swirling around. And then, of course, Marks and Spencer's went, actually, there's this clause in the contract that if it gets sold, then that voids the contract. So they then got in Gist to do all the work instead. So Norbert Dentressangle bought Christian Salverson for a contract that they never got. So, yeah, all that they were left with was the tray washers, which are at places like the big Tesco's and Asda's and Lidl and that. At their distribution centres, they have the big industrial tray washers where the trays that all the meat products and the veg products get shipped backwards and forwards in go through basically like a massive industrial dishwasher. So that's all Norbert Dentressangle got out of buying Christian Salverson. Oh, I know too much. Oh no, it's gone. Screen's gone blank again. I have to keep putting a password in when it does this. It's really annoying. There we go. Oh, we've opened a huge Pandora's box. Right, okay, let's put the politics back in the box, shall we? I don't normally talk about politics, and I've made the mistake, excuse me, of talking politics very briefly, very briefly. So we're going to put politics back in the box, and we're going to move back to, excuse me, to trains. So basically, any comments to do with politics, I see them there. I'm not gonna talk about them. Although Game Hammer Classic Gaming, you have a point. Right. Trains. HS2 is under threat. Yeah, I think part of that is because the cost overruns. The problem with HS2 is it's like a black hole that they're shoveling money into it. And I think the biggest concern is that there isn't actually anymore a final price tag to deliver it, because the way the costs are spiralling, nobody knows what it's going to cost because poor management has allowed those costs to spiral out of control.
Javel Clip says, what do you think of the Class 800 IEP?
It's modern stuff. I am aware of its existence, but I couldn't even tell you what we're looking at. The modern stuff, it's like I said to you upstairs in the loft when we were doing the interview up there. It's like in about 1992, my interest in the real railways just started to waver and just disappear. I feel that in the run-up to privatisation, a lot of Britain's rail networks were massively rationalised with the sole intention of making them a much more viable prospect for a private company to buy. So basically cutting out all of the stuff that was being heavily subsidised and getting rid of it. And I felt that it was like the final nail in the coffin that Beeching started, in a way. That's how I feel. That's probably not an accurate representation of how it went down, but it's just my personal feelings. You know, I can remember a lot of stuff that disappeared very quickly in the early 90s.
Brockwell Lane asks for your manufacturer of the year.
Ooh.
I'm going to say Hornby.
It's a toughie, but I think I'd agree with you. Hornby have really, really turned themselves around, and for me, there's a lot of great models coming through, but also one of the things I've noticed is that they're not afraid to retool a model which the market already considered really good to make it better. And one of the best examples of this is the Princess Coronation class. Because the previous version was a great model. I've got one and it's a lovely model, and if that was still on the market, I think everybody would still be pretty happy with it. But they then went and retooled it again, and people are like, why are you retooling? There's nothing wrong with it. But when you saw the new model, they'd found a new level to take it to that people didn't even know was possible in terms of like subtle changes. And I think that shows a commitment to the hobby that is really, really good. I know that they got a lot of bad press for kind of shafting rails a little bit on the Terrier.
I can kind of understand it, but then again, at the same time, the Terrier's always been Hornby's little thing. And
Well, it was originally Dapol.
I think Hornby made it their own, really, but then.
Well, they kept that model in their range far too long, and it reached a point where it was a very old model, and it was showing its age. I mean, even more so than the XL&Y Pug, which was originally a Dapol model as well. That holds its own much better, but the old Terrier was it was a great model in its day, but technology had marched on, and it just felt like they kept it in the main range too long. Now, I don't doubt that Hornby had been working on a new Terrier. I don't think that they heard the announcement from Rails and went, oh, we're going to stick it to them. The thing about Hornby is that I actually really like is that they don't play this Bagsy game that other manufacturers, Bachmann, tend to do, where they announce a model and then sit on it for like 10 years, almost like saying, we're going to eventually do a class 24-1, so don't you go making one, because we're bringing one out. And then, like, how long have we waited for that model?
I don't know, probably as long as I've waited for the class 158, which has been about 4 years behind schedule.
Yeah, but Hornby have this thing where they only announce it when it's well into the actual production cycle. And I think with the Terrier, they probably put in a lot of work when Rails announced theirs. And rather than...
I think it's the same when Hattons did their Class 66, isn't it? When Hornby came out and did, here's all the £70 reliveried Class 66s.
Yeah, that felt a bit naughty in a way. But with that, it was Hattons and Bachmann had the Barney over that. And then almost like coming out of nowhere
was perfect marketing. They were clearly playing on it. And
but I've talked to Hattons about this, and actually they're not bothered about the Hornby model, because they say it's aimed at a different price range, and it's like anybody who was going to buy the Hornby model wasn't going to buy the Hattons model, because you basically
it's an entry model versus a really I don't want to say an accurate model, but that's probably the best phrase I can use.
Yeah.
It's gone above and beyond detailing that Hornby would normally put into a model.
Yeah. What was interesting for me, the demon for me out of all of that fiasco was Bachmann, because I felt that they came across badly. I mean, throughout all of this,
yeah, they did.
Hattons have been very magnanimous. They haven't dissed Bachmann. They've been like we're doing this.
They've been professional. It's
very professional. But Bachmann, not only did they then throw a hissy fit and refuse to supply Hattons, which, I mean, it's like borderline. I'm sure that there's probably a law against doing that to your competition. But then they announced a price drop on their Class 66s and cut the price down to undercut the Hattons model, and that just smacked of sour grapes. Really did. And Hattons must have been one of their biggest customers in terms of shifting product. So it'd be interesting to see how that has hurt the bottom line at Bachmann, because the big three box shifters, Kerno, Rails and Hattons, it's like 1/3 of that. If anything, I would have said probably Hattons was one of the biggest. They traditionally
I'd
shifted.
say Hattons and Rails are certainly sizably more than Kerno.
But for them to just in one fell swoop say, we're not supplying you, I mean, that's what my mum would have said, cutting your nose off to spite your face.
Exactly.
And I think that Bachmann didn't come out of that spat very well at all. And Hattons, they didn't resort to anything unprofessional. They just, they took it with grace, didn't make a big thing about it. And I think that, they came out of it very well.
Yeah.
But how are we doing on the line? How long have we been actually going for?
Nearly 3 hours.
All right, in that case, we should probably start to round this off, because I'm mindful that you want to film some more stuff afterwards, and normally 3 hours is about tops. But Warrington Train Spotter 2778 has happened to stop selling all Bachmann stuff. They don't stock any new Bachmann stuff. They still deal in it second hand. And actually, what's interested me is the amount of stock that they still have that they're selling brand new.
Yep.
And what it actually says to me is that some of these items aren't selling very well at all. And if Hattons are struggling to sell them, that means that they're slow sellers everywhere else as well. So it's probably a bit of an own goal for Bachmann, because what they've shown is actually there's a lot of stuff that just isn't selling at the prices that they've been putting them out at.
I know one of my friends that runs his model shop. He has 4 different lockups to hold his stock because a lot of it, like you said, just doesn't sell. So you have to wait until something comes around that's seasonal, perhaps like the RHTT and the MPVs. So I know he'll be listing them out at shows now because it's seasonal. People are seeing it on the layouts. But hey.
Yeah, I mean, but the trouble with that is what I was talking to Phil, who runs Bolton Model Mart. When you have a model in stock for a long period of time, it's actually really bad for a business because you effectively...
It's tied up revenue.
It's tied up capital that doesn't earn you anything. It if anything, it depreciates because that money you can't use to make more money. So he had... it's actually the Hornby Class 31, which you saw on Great Model Railway Challenge. That locomotive I bought about 3 maybe even 4 years after it was brought out, and he still had it in his cabinet, and I bought it. And so effectively he had the money that he'd already had to pay Hornby for that tied up, couldn't do anything with it for that length of time. And when you start to multiply that through and you have tens of thousands of pounds worth of stock like that, it can actually mean the difference between a company surviving and a company going under.
Yep.
We've actually seen one of the well-known model shops struggle in that respect, and they actually had to offload a lot of stock to Hattons, presumably because they had this build-up of stock and they had capital tied up in it, and it's not good for any business to be like that. But we're going to have to round up now. It's been a great live stream, actually. I'd like to thank you for coming along. It's been really, really good to have you on, and I hope you've all enjoyed it as well. It's been great to have you all along, and we're going to wrap it up. We did touch upon GMRC, so you got the big bit of dirt there, and I hope you vote for us in the TV Choice Awards. Don't forget to do that. But until next time, this is me, Jenny Kirk, and my special guest from the Cottesmore. Did I pronounce that correct?
You did. You've got it right.
Cottesmore YouTube channel. So go on over.
My channel link in.
Have you put the link in? Yeah.
Boom. There you go.
Is it gone in?
It is. It's there. It'll show in a minute by the magic.
Ah, that's sort of lagging behind, isn't it?
That one's bang onto the... There you go.
There we go.
That one's a few seconds behind.
It is rather, yeah. So I can swear on one and mute myself on the other.
Yes. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up button. Thank you, guys. 42, which is amazing.
Brilliant. You're good at this.
Well, I'd say I learned from the best.
Dear. Who's that? Can I?
I just follow Gary on Cheek Attack.
Yeah, I mean that's the thing. I think YouTube is a great area. I've seen it blossom in probably the last 10 years for the model railway community, and it's nice to see the community embracing this relatively new way of getting out there, and I think it's done a lot for the hobby.
It's certainly it's opened it up to far more people than what it normally would have, especially when you look at reader numbers for the magazines and the traditional media.
Yeah, I mean, I've seen some of the figures for some of the smaller magazines, and actually they're about what some of these videos on YouTube get in terms of views. So, you all right, Cupboard Monkey? Come on in. You keep them very quiet, so it seems to people on the channel like I'm just talking at nothing. Anyway, look, we're going to wrap this up. Don't forget to like, share, subscribe, and also check out the Cottesmore YouTube channel. And don't forget to subscribe to him as well. And I'll be seeing you next time. In the meantime, we have a new All Singing Dancing review of the brand new Hornby A4 and sound chip on Wednesday.
That's nice.
It is actually. It's a wonderful locomotive. And Friday will be another update on progress on Weir up in the loft. There's been a lot going on. And then Saturday, I'm trying to remember. We've got a video for Saturday. I have filmed it, but I've been filming so much I've completely forgotten. Oh yeah, that was it. We'll be reviewing the Train-O-Matic DCC chips, so stay tuned for that. I know everybody liked the Lace DCC decoder review. This is a completely different company. It's actually a Dutch company, I believe. So stay tuned for Saturday's video and you'll see what I thought about them. Pretty good, actually. I'll give you a little spoiler. Really good. Anyway, you take really good care of yourself. And this is me, Jenny Kirk, with Dave from Cottesmore saying bye for now.
Bye. Now there's the weird bit where you press X and it carries on for
Yeah,
5
it's like,
seconds.
do you want to stop streaming?